We'll call the meeting to order. It looks like it's a few seconds after 6. May we have a roll call, please?
Stone?
Here.
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 Mr. Libby?
Here.
Mr. Ramsey? Here. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Chairman Webster?
Present. All right. Tracy, can we have a lead in the pledge and invocation?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, we just pray for peace. Peace here, but even more so, peace in the Middle East. Amen.
I believe we have proposed minutes. Do we have any motion with respect to the minutes of August 8, 2012?
I'll move we accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Public comments. Do we have any public wishing to make comments? Looks like we have John Nichols. Name, address, 3 minutes, please.
John Nichols at 413 North Granbury Avenue. I went to the downtown Blue Road CRA meeting yesterday. They are talking about parking just as you all are talking about parking. Yeah, I'm passing around this. From either side, I only have 2 copies. They were limited. In it, they have the Gibbs report. All of this is public knowledge, public property. I don't understand why you guys are not getting copies of the Gibbs report and all the reports that they're doing, including the parking. You all paid for a parking study, Gary, 10 years ago, 11 years ago? And
He's asking you.
you haven't got it yet. You paid for it, but it's in City Hall somewhere. There are several parking studies. You had one of your board members a couple of years ago quit because they couldn't get hold of the parking study. You all deserve to have all of these studies. You all deserve to see what's going on. Anything that benefits you guys, you should have access to. And I'm asking you to look at what Maine downtown has gotten, and that you should get the same amount of information. Thank you.
Thank you, John. No further public. We'll move on then to number 5 on the agenda, DEV 2012-78, Conceptual Site Plan, Daytona Beach Resort, Hotel, and Condos. Reed?
Thank you. What you have here is a project that is located at the far eastern end of Oak Ridge Boulevard, right at the north, the north border of the Main Street redevelopment area. And it is located on either side of Oak Ridge on the ocean. And this is a hotel and condo development
From John.
that's proposed. And this is a concept plan. That is, we're only going to be making comments on this without taking any action, simply giving some guidance to the applicant to make sure that they understand some of the issues that we'll be looking for when a site plan comes forward to this body in the future. So this is a real opportunity to start talking about design guidelines, about the architecture, about setbacks, about how the building lays out on the site. And with that, I'd like to, with your permission, have the applicant come up and give you a presentation.
Very good.
Rob Merrill, I think you're going to come up and start it off.
I will.
Thank
you, Reed. For the record, my name is Rob Merrill with Cobb Cole Law Firm, 150 Magnolia. And here tonight representing the applicant, the Proto Group. And I've got several folks here with me in the front row that are on our team that I want to introduce. Alexei Lisich is the first gentleman here, and Simon Kramer, sitting next to him, are both from the Proto Group. Greg Portman and Gene Manzanios are architects from Atlanta with the PFVS Group out of Atlanta. And Paul Momberger and Randy Hudak are here from Zeb Cohen's office, our engineer and landscape architect. And again, this is, as you've experienced in the past kind of a dialogue at this concept stage. So they're all here to answer questions, ask questions where appropriate, and hopefully get some good feedback from all of you. I want to start by saying I think this is one of those cases that comes along only a few times in a career of a zoning lawyer like myself, has the opportunity, I think, to help us turn the corner here in Daytona Beach. I don't think you have to be paying real close attention to realize that one of the things we need here, there are a few things we need, certainly, but one of them is a quality new hotel that can service the Ocean Center. You know, the vision study that was done, the E-zone report, the E-zone studies that were done, many newspaper articles. Hank Fishkind did the report for the group last year that reached the conclusion that probably we aren't going to get a private sector hotel builder to come down here and build a hotel. But I've got some right here, so I'm excited about that. And hopefully, with the feedback that we get from you all, we'll move to the next step in this process, and hopefully see a hotel built. I passed out some brochures, as well as some pictures that the architect will refer to. But I wanted to show you this brochure right here first. And you'll see one of the folks on the first page there is Alexi, who's here with us tonight. And this is his company is a family business. They are developers, owners, operators of hotels now and have been for some time, primarily in St. Petersburg, Russia. You'll see some of the examples of them in this literature. They also are in the supermarket business over in Russia, and they have recently developed and are operating a hotel in Palm Coast as well, which you see in the brochure. I don't mean to go through that in any detail with you, but one of the most important things that I've found with a project like this is trying to ascertain and hopefully explain to you all that we've got a real one here. Somebody who is not under contract to purchase, hoping to flip, or owning, hoping to flip. These guys want to build something, and they're serious about it. So that's hopefully that raises the significance of our dialogue here tonight. Again, procedurally, we're at a very conceptual stage. You're going to see some architectural renderings that have been pretty well developed in terms of the visuals to give you a pretty good picture of what we're talking about. But certainly they are ready to receive architectural design, other conceptual input, because that's where we are at this point. With that introduction, I want to turn it over to Greg Portman, the architect, and then I'm going to spend a few minutes when he gets done showing you the exciting part of this project with a few closing comments that I think hopefully will invite some questions from you all. With that, Greg, I'll let you, I know we actually have some AV stuff that we want to make sure is properly teed up because it's high resolution, I think, so with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm Greg Portman with PFES Architecture out of Atlanta. For those of you that aren't familiar with our company, we specialize in hotel design. We were started in 1987 and have been doing mostly hospitality design since that point in time. The partners worked for a firm that specialized in hospitality prior to starting in 1987, so we have probably 35 years worth of hospitality design. We've completed projects in over 35 different states in the United States and have completed more than 220 hotel projects. So with that being said, if we have the first slide that can come up. And I'll... Okay.
It'll be there.
With that, I don't know if you can get this. Let me just direct you out on the left to the north side of the this drives primarily condominiums. Okay.
Is there a portable mic?
Well, I think I can shine it from here, so we'll be good. This portion is 105 condominium units that were established in a 29-story tower, which is from the street level. And this component, this portion of the project is, this portion of the project here is parking that is, in this particular case, robotic parking, which is probably a new concept for most people. This level here at the street level is retail fronting the street in a covered arcade as we walk along here, and the main entrance being in Oak Ridge as you drive in eastward towards the coast. And the other major components, there are 61 hotel rooms that are on the front of the parking deck, so there's no real exposed surfaces of the parking deck to the public view.
Excuse me, what are you calling the front, A1A or the beach?
In this particular case, I would say A1A.
Okay.
So, and then, so we have, they're equal fronts pretty much, really. This is the Sea Dunes existing property. This is a 84 rooms of hotel and 11-story tower in the mid tower, and then a 26-story 100% hotel wing of the high-rise on what we will refer to as the South Tower. Just to
If you all can follow along with the other printed piece that I gave you is the same, I think, as what he's showing you. And this glare is making it difficult. So I've never experienced this, but he's got a glossy finish that's causing a reflection, which we've never seen before. So if you can sort of follow what he's pointing at on this, and then look down at your package, I think you'll probably get a better view.
So we'll flip through this in a minute here, but to basically give you the orientation, the North Tower is predominantly condominium and parking. The South Tower and Mid Tower are 100% hotel, and the lower 3 levels of the structure on the South Tower are public spaces for the hotel. So I will, in this area here, is also a covered portion of the street frontage for the part that we can have some control over. So there is, from the curb to the wall is 15 feet here, which we have responded to Reed's comments earlier on for that. So moving towards the ocean view, so this would be looking from the water back at the property.
Well, attached also in what was attached to our packet. What you're doing right now is our color attachment as well. Yeah. Okay.
Greg, feel free to, if you want to just point with your fingers on there.
Okay.
We'll see it.
We'll see it probably better. Don't you
All
think?
right. All right. This is the South Tower looking at it from the ocean side. This is the Mid Tower, which is the 11-story component that we were speaking of. This is all hotel in this location. The terraces have parking below for a portion of it, and this is restaurant level. This is lobby entrance level to the hotel, and the terraces are on both north and south sides of the development. We've maintained access to the from the A1A corridor on Oak Ridge, so it remains open and has access to the beach as it does now. This would be the hotel component that faces, faces the ocean, but it also faces the parking deck. So it's the front portion of the component for parking. Then this level at this point is the public amenity portion for the condominium owners in this location. And then we'll have condos rising above this podium level at this point.
Is that condo hotel or strictly condos?
Condo, strictly for sale.
Okay.
And then this, obviously is the recreational amenity with the swimming pools and sun terraces, and this would be outdoor dining for the restaurant component in this location. This is another terrace, which would have an outdoor, right now is planned to have an outdoor bar in this location.
So am I correct in assuming that when you spoke to Reed, that there'll be no request for any variances on setbacks? You're going to satisfy?
No,
The
that
current-
is not true.
That is not true. Okay.
No, there will be requests.
Okay.
This is the view of the beach access and the main entrance to both the hotel at this location and the condominium in this location, looking westerly in this. This was the terrace level bar that I was describing earlier, and this is access to the beach from the hotel, and then a similar access on this side for the condominium owners.
I'm sorry, now again, I'm confused. Is this from A1A?
No, this is from the beach.
Okay, so how does someone continue to drive down to the beach? Are they driving on that block?
Well, this portion,
Oh, I thought you could go in and go north. Only at Plaza? Okay, all right, I'm confused, okay, thank you.
but an emergency vehicle could come across it.
Yeah, I see it's wide enough for that, then, okay, I was confused.
Okay. And then this is a little a view as you go this way on the terrace and look back towards the north.
And,
Can we back up just one second?
Sure.
yeah,
Looking at your, I just noticed a truck. Now that's a closed beach approach. So where am I looking at when I see that the white?
Are you talking about this?
The circle.
no, the circle, there's a
In the-
truck
in
in
the-
the
in the
circle.
There are cars,
This is
there are
right here.
two cars and
There's a traffic lane through here. And all that, see.
Okay, but how, but where is the gate?
I'm not sure which part.
Wait, one at a time.
This is guest drop-off here. Okay, so this would be hotel guest, and, you know, they'll circulate around this way, around the circle.
And they'll come back out.
Because you're proposing cars down here.
Okay.
All right, so this gives you, this is A1A here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would enter the hotel or condominium in this particular direction. And then this circle would be a valet. We're planning for valet for all hotel guests, so they would drop off their car in this location.
So the circle is going to be before the gate.
The gate,
After the gate.
the gate
Wait.
would be here.
Oh.
That's,
Depends which way you're coming from. If you're coming from the west,
If you're going west to east.
okay, this is beachfront here.
Okay,
And so
that's the
a
beach.
gate, if we have a gate, it'll be
Okay.
here.
Okay, so
All right.
the circle's before the gate. That's what I understand.
Correct.
Okay.
So
And-
if you're
And
a,
while- I'm sorry, while we're looking at that, how does someone get into your parking? Either your
for,
condominium, for anybody?
for a hotel guest, the hotel guest pulls up here and it's
Uh-huh.
100% valet.
Okay,
So valet takes your car from here, the valet will take it and drive it and then come into this slot. There are 4 slots for valet to use the robotic parking. Robotic parking, for lack of better terminology, is like a vending machine for your car.
okay.
You pull your car into like a car wash kind of bay, and then your car is taken away on a platform, and it goes up to a designated spot. And then when you come back, you insert a card, and it brings your car back down, turns it around, brings your car down, so you can drive it right out of the park.
And then
And the
Condo.
go ahead.
the condo owners do the same thing?
The condo owners do not have to use valet. The condo owners have 2 spots for themselves over here. So we would anticipate that once a condo is purchased and an owner is a resident, he would pull in this entrance, which would be the northern part, and would pull his car in here and then walk through this lobby into the condominium hotel lobby, elevator lobby. So it's a pretty slick system if you haven't seen it before. And it has a number of environmental benefits to it in that there's nobody driving up in this parking area, and it minimizes the space or volume actually needed for a parking deck because it's all mechanized basically within this space. So you don't have the security issues that you would have with a female walking to her car and a parking deck and not knowing what's around her or necessarily, or people driving down the parking deck and possibly hitting other cars or people in the process. So you kind of remove that from the equation completely. And so you don't have the driving, obviously, which means you don't have the emissions and the car exhaust and the other negative parts that go with the parking deck.
And
So,
these things have worked well on the ocean?
yes, there's actually one in Clearwater right now.
Okay.
And that's the company is based out of Clearwater for that matter.
Okay.
Dare to say Clearwater's ocean or salt content's a little different.
It's a
than
little
ours here.
different than the
I'm
ocean.
sure
just
that's
so you know
true.
that. Okay.
We're
There's also
considered-
one in Dubai, which was in a recent movie with Tom Cruise, if you may have
Okay.
seen
Well,
that.
we
Mission
we
Impossible.
reputedly, and based on litigation I've been involved in, we have some of the highest salt content in the world in our area.
In our area.
Okay.
And so I can just see, unless that's a highly specialized metal, it's gonna be a maintenance nightmare, but
Well, we've brought that issue up to the parking company as well, and they assure us
Okay.
that it will be fine, so.
and what size vehicle will it handle?
Any size that you bring into it. So it's, Gene, do we have special?
We have different size heights on different floors of the body park, so we can do up to a 9-foot high vehicle, but most of the bays are 7 feet tall.
So it'll take
Handle
SUVs.
Full-size crew
Right.
cab pickup,
Right,
because we get a lot of pickup trucks in Daytona.
right.
Okay.
So at any rate, that's how, this would be guest parking for visitors to the condominium owners. And this would be, if you're a hotel guest, you would arrive in this location,
That on that.
and you would enter through the motor lobby and go up escalators to the to the main lobby level. This is all service areas, as you can tell, for the support of the hotel. And we would have employee parking at a lower level going down. So any questions on this anymore? I'll flip to the next one. We can come
I
back.
just have
It's
one.
okay.
On the service area, that's big enough to back like a full-size semi-truck in there to deliver.
In fact,
food.
you can see that happening right there. So that's how a truck would pull in, back in, and then pull out.
I can't see.
I can,
And how many trucks can be put in there at one time?
oh,
Two.
he's looking on it this way. I see.
And it looks like they pull in, back into unload, and then pull back out and
A-
circle around the whole
Oh,
building?
that's what
A
that is.
semi-trailer truck would pull in like this, pull back out, and then pull out onto A1A.
Oh, pull straight back out the same
Right.
way, okay.
And, same for, another truck could pull in this way and back in if it's shorter.
Oh, I see, you're showing them backing in from two different directions.
Correct.
I'm-
This would be the longer truck, and this would be the shorter truck.
So there'd be no deliveries on A1A to any of
No,
the
not on it.
stores
It's
or-
all off the street.
All off.
Yeah.
For everything, the condo, the hotels, the
Yes.
retail, the bars,
Well,
everything is right there.
This is the retail portion of it here, and this is retail over here.
But this
So
is where
right
their
now, they would all come in
deliveries-
through the service. Yes,
That's all deliveries for all of it.
that's our anticipation.
Okay.
And so this, before I go away, this is a covered arcade along here, and we'll try to zoom in on that on a different slide here in a minute. So moving up to the main level.
First level floor plan.
Second level floor plan or,
Let's see. Did you pull it down there? Yeah, there we go.
It's called first level floor plan.
All right, so
okay,
the first level floor
All right.
plan.
okay.
Actually, that one's first level.
So you've driven up to the hotel and you've come up these escalators in this location and, or in this location rather. And you come up to the lobby of the hotel. Thank you. Use my fingers. I've always been taught not to use my fingers. Okay, so this is the
get.
terrace
Okay.
deck area. This would be, if you were a guest, you would check in and go to the, you'd check in over here, and you would go to your guest room through these elevators. And then once you're
Yeah.
situated, you would come out and go to the pool in this route, going this way. So you have restaurant, kitchen, and then ballroom function in this
Sure,
location. We have meeting rooms at a level above. And here you can see some of the functional space of the robotic parking. And then this is terrace for more lounge chairs. And then oceanfront shops, and this is basically a bridge overlook that looks out towards the ocean. This would be the main bar in this location, the lounge component for the restaurants. Any questions on this right now? Okay. Then moving up a level, we have additional meeting rooms. This would be the roof of the ballroom in this location. And so you have various different banquet rooms and function spaces and support space for the meeting facilities. All told, there's 15,000 square feet of function space at this juncture. Okay, and moving up one level, you get to the third level floor plan, which is the first guest room level, and you see the terrace that I was describing earlier, which has the outdoor bar. That was this piece that you see in the elevation right here. That covers this component right here. And so outdoor terrace and then basic guest room level in this location. There are guest rooms that face you can see how they're fronting off of the parking component in that location. And then at the street level, it's fronted with retail. So from here, the levels are relatively standard going up. And then we have, if you, let's do this level. This shows the public level for the, basically the amenity package for the condominium owners. So they'll have their own indoor-outdoor swimming pool and a lounge terrace for themselves, and then support spaces for the owners of the condominiums in that location. And if you, again, we're 501 total guest rooms, 105 total condominiums at this point. And the opportunity I think that's here is we've tried to design a 4-star resort for Daytona, which I think would put you in a world-class category for hotel operations. That's our intent. And if there are not any more immediate questions about this, we have a video that kind of wraps all this together and puts it in a movie format that will hopefully give you a picture of a 360-degree view.
What would the effect on the number of rooms and the footprint of the building be if you adhered to the current setbacks?
It wouldn't allow the tower to be constructed at all.
At all?
Basically, you'd get up above the 58-foot level, and it would diminish to the point to where it wouldn't work.
It's a kind of a trick question, Gary, in the sense that for two reasons. One, there are multiple side yard setbacks because we straddle Oak Ridge, and I was going to get into that a little bit. This is a pretty unique situation in that regard. The other is the setbacks change as the building height changes. So there's an infinite number of different things you could build, none of which we could make work with the current setbacks, which I'll go over with you a little bit.
Even on just the ground floor?
Horizontally, we respect all the setbacks right now.
What do you mean horizontally?
At the ground level, where we are required, well,
not
entirely true.
like it. You might be.
So
we don't have the level of detail finalized yet, whether it's 15 feet or 17 feet or 37 feet, or we're just not there yet. We're giving you a concept. We will appreciate whatever comments you might have about the setbacks, but we'll tell you right up front. That's one of the things I was going to make sure I close with. The project doesn't meet all the side yard setbacks. We meet the rear yard setback completely with every inch of it. We know that. The front yard is going to be a little different, front being A1A in the sense that we're trying to create an urban edge there, if you will. One that has a very pedestrian-friendly edge on it, not being critical of, but unlike some of the other experiences we've had to the north. Right. I think we've learned some lessons about that. So
and to the south.
To the south.
And to the south.
Where I'm thinking.
And to the south. That's what I meant to say. So we have tried to incorporate some of those lessons learned, and frankly, at staff's urging to some extent, in the project. And one thing that I'm sorry to jump into your show, but one of the things that Greg didn't mention when he was talking about that streetscape, which I think is really important, is it goes all the way along the street. It originally was just on the north side. We had what he called an arcade. It's a setback of 10 or 12 feet with covered area where there's a cantilevered building comes over, and then there's a street front with retail where people can be out of the sun, out of the rain, and still go from one end of the property to the other. And hopefully this is what happens all the way along A1A someday.
If the arcade were not there, would you satisfy the setbacks to the wall?
The building itself, I believe, at this point, again, it hasn't settled in place yet, but it's somewhere in the 15 to 20, something.
On the ballroom?
On the
ballroom
front.
component.
On the
it's
front.
It's different on one side and the other, so that's why I'm asking.
Well, let's take the front, for example.
Just the front setback.
Let's go to that. Let's
Yeah, go to that
plan.
slide.
We can talk about it.
All right, we're all jumping in your show.
That's
Sorry
all
about
right.
that. But I'll
It's a
have
team
mine.
effort.
You can show the perspective, and it gives you a little bit of a feel for it. When you see the video, you'll get a real feel for it. But I want
Okay,
the
okay.
last thing you see.
But from this standpoint, this is the ground floor plan. I'm just going to point my finger. The tower is set back, but the retail that's on the street needs to be on the street. So the front setback's 25 feet. We're at 10 feet from the right-of-way, 15 feet from the edge of pavement, which is a nice strip for connection to retail on the street.
Will you have a sidewalk to the west of your arcade before you get to A1A, or is all the sidewalk covered underneath the cantilever of that first floor?
Well, we have the 5-foot streetscape that's out there now.
So there'll be 5 feet.
This is the existing streetscape that we've done with the new pavers. That's all out here,
Okay.
all along that stretch. And then we have another 10 feet of this arcade that's covered
Okay.
new streetscape
Okay,
in front of our shops.
okay.
Same thing is going to happen over here as well. Not with an arcade, but with 15 feet.
But if you still measured through the opening of the arcade to the wall of retail, you still don't satisfy the
Front
setbacks?
setback.
No, it would
It's
not.
25 feet, and we have
25 feet, and
10.
They really were intended for a different type of building. I mean, our
Right.
25-foot setback.
No,
for a
I
typical
agree.
condo, It's a totally different situation.
I'm just asking.
Well,
I'm
no,
just
it's
No,
an
asking.
absolutely.
excellent
Good
question.
question.
And part of the reason why I was
They
trying to
were
explain it to you
intended for
as being
hotels, too.
unique and different is
Not
we're
just
trying to
condos.
create what a lot of the cities are looking
was
for
part of
on
all
an
of those
urban
oceanfront.
street front
Yeah.
like
That's the way they
A1A,
applied them,
an
was
urban
just
edge
like
that's
that.
really pedestrian friendly and doesn't have a lot of landscaping and setback where the condo and the hotel is exclusive and it's away from the people that are on the sidewalk. It becomes part of what's going
Yeah.
on the sidewalk.
Include,
So
like Delray
it needs to
Beach,
be-
the whole
it
covered
needs to be
thing.
up front.
Okay.
So
But
I
the
have I have oh, I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say the vertical aspects of the tower are set back a little bit further.
Right.
So they are more consistent with what our setback would normally require.
What is that on the south side that it
That's
says
the-
3
you're seeing part of the
stories?
restaurant, I think, where it's you saw
Yeah.
the lower
You're-
elevation.
You're over here,
Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Which
It
is-
looks like it goes right up to the lot line.
If you look at the
It's
plan,
5 feet, but yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's right up to the lot line.
It's pretty close, I agree.
It's meeting rooms
Oh,
on the side. That's a 3-story height building. I'm talking about this little thing right there.
here it is. Here, use
That
this.
little thing on the, it said on the one thing, like a 3-story something.
You got the kitchen and the restaurant, and they only go up to 2 levels, so it's just only 2 stories there. But those are that is close there.
this is what you're looking at, which you're pointing at a second here, right here.
I'm looking at
Yep.
See the notch that sticks out right there?
three
that.
stories to the lot line, that side, on the south side.
It's-
Right.
it's
So that's a
two-
restaurant.
That's kitchen, dining, and outdoor dining, then above it is meeting rooms. That's what Paul was talking
Right.
about.
Okay,
The second floor is meeting rooms. It also sticks out.
Right.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Only 3 floors, and then the tower setback.
Yeah.
Only 3 floors, okay. All right.
Let's show the video. Now for the most exciting part.
Now for the
And
most
then you get
exciting
me.
part.
Rob, or someone, does
Music.
anyone
Can you-
know how tall the
Can you
ocean
go over
wall
there
is?
and pick full screen?
One side is, I think, 23 stories, and the other is 26?
26 and 29.
26 and 29, okay. They got a variance for the second tower. They weren't supposed to both, the second one wasn't supposed to be that tall, and they went back to the redevelopment board at the time and got a variance.
It is 26, 29.
Okay. I thought it was 23, 26, it's like that. Okay.
See, the
Sorry,
line-
we were still talking.
The
Yeah, the little thing in the right-hand corner won't make it go bigger.
No, the way they had to convert it to.
Can we dim the lights?
Yeah, can we get the lights or turn them off?
Actually, it would be helpful to,
All right, it's not going to get any bigger, apparently.
Greg, were you
Okay.
answering that this one was 26 and 29? Or that the
north,
Ocean Walk is
the
26?
north tower is 29,
This
south tower is 26.
Did you bring any popcorn?
Okay, but do we know what Ocean Walk is?
I don't know.
see, I said 23, 26.
Okay, thank you.
So these are not 225, these are 26 and 29.
It's okay.
You ready for the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Promise we watched it 14 times.
That's just what's happened to it.
Wore it out.
We're in trouble.
Yes, you did.
I think we get the.
What happened to the good old days of a PowerPoint?
Yeah. It's a pretty impressive thing to see it moving and see it in 3D, if it works. You get the feel for it.
You're looking at the base of the condo tower on the right
This is
from the ocean, looking west.
We asked for a PowerPoint, that's what it turned into, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, we did our best with that. So that
This
won't be
is
such
the
a tough
Revit-
act to follow afterwards, after all.
Is this the Revit software, this three-dimensional?
This is actually
It's a real high
Lumion.
definition, I'm afraid, is the problem.
It's a high-definition video created with SketchUp and Lumion software.
Okay.
So it works on a Mac.
Yeah.
Don't turn it off just yet. Looking at that picture right there is part of the three-dimensional feel I was hoping you could get. And Tracy, you made some comments to me before the meeting about the architecture. And I wanted to try to impress upon you that so much of it is glass that it really is a different way of looking at architecture, I think, than some of all of the periodic articulation that's required in the standards that you were reading to me earlier. And when you see the building and how much glass it is and how much you can see through it, it's just I'll let you guys explain the style of the architecture, but it's a different style of architecture than I think is contemplated by those standards.
Okay.
So there you have it. Let's get some lights back on. I'm sorry it wasn't
Well,
able
what
to
about the
completely-
top
That's
floor?
all
Is that
The top floor is penthouse level on
Okay.
both penthouse suites on the hotel and penthouse, likely custom penthouse units for the condominium tower. And
Okay.
there's 3 units on the top of the condo building.
Okay.
I'll ask the IT folks in the back there, appreciate your efforts, but if you can try to play it back there yourselves and you get it to work sometime before the night's over, I think it's worth spending the minute or two to watch the thing happen. So let me make a few comments, and then we'll I guess from a procedural standpoint, you can open up however you want to the audience or others, and then we're available for questions for you. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is kind of a unique site. It's unique because it's thankfully close to the Ocean Center. We're within walking distance, I think. Decent walk, I think, but within walking distance. It is unique in that it straddles Oak Ridge Boulevard, which is a beach ramp as it's east of A1A. And in fact, that creates some interesting issues as it relates to the setback questions that were raised. We really have 4 side yard setbacks as it comes down to it, with Oak Ridge creating a side yard. And this project, as you saw, hopefully you would have seen, I think, more with the video, really surrounds Oak Ridge. And it's not that much different than the Plaza Hotel and the Seabreeze beach ramp, which has always been essentially a tunnel to the beach, if you will. We will likely, and we're still at the concept stage here, we'll likely have some stormwater underneath the road. We've spoken with the county about that. We're going to have, as you see, structures above the road, a lot of enhancement of the right-of-way itself, which will include parking, access, continued access. The restrooms, we've had some discussion with the county about as well. They're involved in a global assessment of their restrooms in the area. Which ones are old, which ones are new, which ones are the way they want them to be from a construction and style standpoint. And it's very likely this restroom is going to be moved somewhere else and reconstructed somewhere else that's probably better than where it is now. But again, this is the county's right of way, so we're meeting with them and going through that with them. So we have sort of two governments and some neighbors that we're trying to work through their issues and settle with something that everybody likes. We also talked with the county, and we'll be talking with the city continually about some of the more global public improvements that should come from the construction of this project. I mean, this is a $100 million plus project. This is a gigantic contribution to the tax base, to the TIF for the redevelopment area. And there's going to be a lot of things that can flow from this. I'm going to list some of them for you just for your thinking purposes and discussion purposes. We've talked about hardscape and landscape, streetscape along Oak Ridge. That's basically from the ocean to the river, not just in our area of Oak Ridge. There's a lot, when you look down Oak Ridge from the east, there's a lot that can be done with that right-of-way. It's not, I don't think, where we want it to be ultimately for a gateway, especially if this hotel's built, this becomes one of our gateways for sure. A1A, same thing, landscape, hardscape, a lot of the pedestrian interconnections that I talked about before. This project has the ability to allow those things to happen and be funded. A lot of utilities over there were built many, many years ago and are failing. Those things need to be improved, and that's one of the public improvements that I think that can come out of this. There's been some discussion about enhancements at the Ocean Center. A central park concept is what's been talked about. You know, there's these stormwater ponds out in front of the Ocean Center, kind of a waste of space. If you really activate that area with a lot of pedestrian activity, the idea is maybe some of that becomes underground vaults, and we have park-like settings above that are used and actually part of the streetscape. We've done some transportation studies, initial ones. We're going to be finishing those as part of the project coming forward. There will be transportation improvements that need to be made, intersection improvements, signalization changes and such. The project already has incorporated, I think Greg mentioned, a ballroom, meeting rooms, things that would be available to the public, much like the Marriott, then the Adams Mark, then the Hilton, incorporated in their expansion. You'll notice, I think it's pretty obvious when you look at the site plan. I'll throw the bottom site plan up. One of you guys can help me find it. This is good. That there's a big white space in the middle of that site plan. And I think you have a letter. I know the chairman got a letter, and I guess it was distributed to all of you all from Jim Morris, who's here tonight, and he'll speak for himself. But he's our immediate neighbor, one of three. We kind of surround him, so he's more immediate than others, and he's raised some points. I think most of the points that he raised I've addressed. Beach access, which will be continued, and we're dealing with the county about traffic study, transportation improvements. We're working on those as well, and protection of access and parking. I think I've talked about that. The idea that we will continue to provide access on Oak Ridge, as well as some parking. Again, Oak Ridge right-of-way he talks about, I think it's the same thing for the most part. There's some public parking there now. Not sure it's all code compliant parking, but there's certainly parking there. People park and go to the beach, and I think that needs to be taken into account. His second point...
Excuse me, I didn't hear what you said. You think that parking what?
Needs to be taken into account in whatever plans we come forward with somehow. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We're in very initial discussions with the county about what happens with Oak Ridge, whether they are accepting of what we're trying to do with the things you were looking at, the circle, where would the gate go to make sure people do or don't go onto the beach when they're not supposed to be driving there unless they're, I think, lifeguards or the trash pickup guys or whoever else actually goes through that gate. We haven't gotten to those details yet. So some of the questions that you asked, we don't have answers to that yet. We're not to that level of detail. That's sort of past the concept stage. But
And you're saying including what would happen with the public parking that
That's right.
currently is on, okay.
That's right. And we've had discussions now a couple times with the county about that and what to do about it. I mean, frankly, when I talked about the public improvements, that could be in that category too. This might be one of those places where there's some off-beach parking lots that are created as a result of the funds that are created with this project. It's huge. We're talking about a lot of money.
Parking spaces are we talking about that flank the sea dunes? 5?
I've got a picture of that.
There are
3?
Yeah, there are 3 right on the side of the sea dunes
So
that I
that's
saw.
what we're talking about, 3.
There actually used to be, and I can show, do we have the picture that shows the whole right-of-way, Paul? You had that.
I'm just talking about the section that is adjacent or north of the sea dunes.
3, I think.
3, okay.
But I think I'll
there,
let Jim or
then I
the Condos
saw,
address it. But I think they
handicap.
have some parking behind their motel as well.
And
And there used to be parking, the Thunderbird Motel is the one on the north side.
Right.
There used to be perpendicular parking, most of which was on the Thunderbird property.
Yes.
And then you see there's a fence there now
Yeah.
along
Right.
where the edge of that was, and people now are parking parallel along the fence, which we think that the parallel parking is mostly within the existing right-of-way. So some people are saying, well, there's parking there too. I don't know. We're still working through that.
Okay, and I have one other question based on something you just said. You're talking about the possibility of, some of these public improvements, but did I just hear you say those are coming out of the funds that this project would generate?
Yeah.
So you're just banking on the CRA having more funds, and then the CRA would use its funds?
Haven't gotten there yet. Haven't even gotten anywhere near that detail. What I was talking in generalities was there will be a lot of funds that will come off of the TIF this project creates,
But-
which can be used for those sorts of things.
So you're not talking about them actually paying for any public improvements themselves?
I'm not-
Only the
I'm
funds?
not talking about it one way or the other. We're not there yet. Like I said, we're just not to that point. We're still talking about
Okay.
how many parking spaces are there that are utilized
Well,
for
I
off-beach
just
parking.
heard you say coming out of the funds this would generate. which-
Talking in generalities about the fact that there's going to be a lot of funds that come out
Well,
of
that's all right.
the tax
I'll
increment
I'll
here.
save that specificity for later.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
gonna get to that. And
Okay.
frankly, Tracy, we're gonna have to go through that, not just with you, but with the planning board,
Oh,
with
yeah,
the
I
city
know.
commission, with the county council.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of different folks, the neighbors, that have some say in that issue.
And how does
realize
the
that.
TIF,
At the beginning of that discussion.
being that half this property, I guess most of this property is in the redevelopment zone and the other part
It's
is
not.
not, how does that?
Good question. The straight concept of tax increment financing that you guys have dealt with and are familiar with only applies statutorily to the CRA portion, to the part that's in the CRA.
The south.
However, there are many other options that are basically the same thing that can be done by agreement between the private and public parties that will result in the same thing happening, Dino. I don't want to go much further than that because we will get in the weeds real quickly.
Okay, how about this? This will be a little off the CRA subject. Obviously, one of the concerns was the close proximity to this white box. How could you assure that the construction will not?
I was getting there.
Okay.
That was
Glad
one
you
of
keep
Jim's
going.
last points in his letter. The second point that he made, all of those right-of-way, parking, other issues, I think are consumed within the first point that he makes. The second point is the question about code compliance. That's already been raised by you guys in some of the questions that you asked Greg and me previously. We're not to the level of detail yet. We can tell you each inch and each foot, but I can tell you for certain that the project's not going to make the side setback requirements, in part because the ones in the middle, it goes right over.
Right.
And in part because it just doesn't fit with the side setbacks. Now, were they designed for this project? I don't think so. I don't think that I think when you see the 360 of this, you'll realize it fits. It's to scale. It's a big building. These are big buildings, without question. That's what we need. We need some big buildings with new hotel rooms in them. That's exactly what we need. We don't need a 5-story or a 4-story or a 6-story hotel room like we have all over the beach right now that are falling apart, like the Thunderbird, like the, I won't mention other names, but like the smaller motels along the beach. That's not what we need to support the Ocean Center and the E-Zone and the things that we're trying to accomplish here. We need to get to the place where we have things like this on the beach. So are we going to get there with those setbacks? No, we're not. That's what these guys are telling me. It's impossible. So I'm anxious to hear your thoughts about that. So when Jim's letter asked about code compliance, I'm not sure exactly which parts he's talking about, but certainly
I think all of it.
Certainly his point about demonstrating lack of or compliance is something we'll need to do. That's part of going through a PD process. That's what this project's going to go through, as a plan development process. There will be the opportunity to waive and balance code compliance versus public improvements that are beneficial to the city.
But balance is the question. It has to
Absolutely.
be balance and who pays as well. It can't be all in
Sure.
one direction.
And for the most part, we're going to be paying for this hotel. That's the biggest one.
Just not the
That's
public
the
improvements.
biggest one. So,
But I have one question. Can someone, can someone explain to me exactly what is over Oak Ridge?
Sure.
That's the one part,
You had a good
3 stories, 10 stories, what is over Oak Ridge?
The portion that covers Oak Ridge, which would be in this,
In the circle part? Is there, I couldn't find a quick.
It looks like, if you go to the fifth floor, oh, there's a 3rd floor connector.
See the connector?
So how many floors are exactly over Oak Ridge?
there you go.
Well, you're
3, floor go.
Well, I just heard a 5th floor connector.
No, the 3rd floor connector.
4th floor doesn't have one.
Okay, so there's
So-
3 floors over Oak Ridge,
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 floors over Oak Ridge.
Over Oak Ridge.
And what are in those floors?
It's
Just
basically
walkways?
walkways to get from the north to the south tower.
Okay, and then what's that curlicue thing that looks
It's
like
art.
an antenna?
It's art.
Oh, I thought the Channel 2 news truck was parked down there.
It's rust potential.
It's art,
It's art. No, it's stainless
We'll take
steel.
that as a productive comment.
yeah.
Leave them alone.
So
Okay, I was just,
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
didn't know
rely on
what
Gary
that
for the-
was.
that portion
art
you can
commentary.
contribute to if you'd like,
Okay,
the design.
okay. And then the blue wall that's backlit, that decorative wall thing on
That's
the condo
still-
tower?
Yes,
What is that?
that's still in development. So that part has,
What is it supposed to be, Greg? What is it
It
intending?
said
to be?
backlit something.
yes,
Backlit
it's just
wall.
Yeah,
an
that's a different
illuminated
way.
design feature like a waterfall from
Yeah.
the top.
Okay,
Is it in fact the waterfall that you saw in the video? Is that
It's
what
not,
she's
no,
looking at?
no, that waterfall was at the lobby.
Yeah, that's
okay.
at the-
There's an
And
actual
And
real
you-
waterfall?
There is a
somewhere?
real
Okay.
waterfall,
Waterfall.
and you will,
Okay.
you'll see that.
Oh, we can?
Okay.
Okay. Well, that'd
Okay.
probably be a
That-
good intermission from
Okay.
me
Right, that
talking,
waterfall
but I had a
comes
couple
down
more
right,
things to say.
right,
You can wipe the sweat off your
you can see
forehead.
that right behind the registration
Okay.
desk.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, let me say a couple more things real quick, Greg, and then
Okay.
I think if the video's working, let's let us finish with that, and then you guys can go to public and questions.
Where's my notes?
Public restrooms, we talked about that. The restrooms that are there were kind of squeezed into the edge of this narrow right-of-way. County doesn't like them, thinks there could be something better close by, and we're working with them on that. The construction question is a good question. It's not an unusual question to deal with when you're talking about major construction like this, especially tower-type construction near older construction. So Jim's raising a legitimate question. We have some technical answers. I'm not going to bring those forward now because I don't know that you guys want to get into those about the way the pilings are put in and things like that. But ultimately, we need to talk to Jim and his clients about coordinating how to make sure they're comfortable with the construction that's going on.
And if
Obviously,
there's a problem with that and something happens to Sea Dunes, you're insured, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've dealt with this in different situations before. Actually, coincidentally, Jim and I have dealt with this in other situations in Daytona Beach before, where we've had to look at pre-construction conditions, inspections, that everybody agreed on who was assessing the situation, then post-construction. Unfortunately, those other situations haven't
Okay, so
had any
you'll have
post-construction
engineering
yet, but
involved before the construction and after the construction? so
we
if
haven't
there was
got.
any- Okay.
I'm just foreseeing what we might get to talk about, but there needs to be a discussion, and we'll have that. Just want to let you guys know that, so you didn't think we were dismissing Mr. Morris's clients. And for a matter of background, before I show the video, you know, we would have liked to have had that portion of the property in the project. It would have made things a lot easier for us, but we tried, and we haven't been able to come to terms on that happening. So
Second time.
yeah, yeah, maybe third swing.
This is the second time.
So with that, let's go ahead and
Yeah.
show the video real quick. It only takes a minute.
Okay.
Waterfall behind the
Okay,
front
I
desk.
see it.
So looking from the northeast. The commercial segment. This is looking southeast. There's a Berlin. Beach access. Shows the north elevation. Terrace level for the condominiums. Beach access. The birds were supplied by DEP. Any further questions?
One quick question, and that is, with all the glass and the interior lights, but how do you deal with the turtle issue?
Well, you'll have drapes, I'm sure, like we would on any other property with windows. So you'll have to pull those at certain specified times, I imagine, during the season.
And the signage that Tracy was referring to that said backlit, that would also comply with the turtle?
Yes, of course it would. It's a long way to develop that.
Oh, I understand. And
The turtle lighting compliance is on the list of issues to be addressed, certainly, we understand.
Okay.
A lot of glad.
Yeah.
And one thing I just want to say, from my perspective, I'm excited over this project. The questions that are coming out of my mouth is not an act of not supporting the project, it's just curiosity.
Certainly.
Just want to put that there.
Dina, why don't we take that and we'll just go around real quick and last opportunity before we open up and see if there's any public comments.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, congratulations and welcome, and I hope this project can be worked out because it would be a fantastic boon for our city. I think the questions that I have are more of how do we balance the benefit from the building and the payback and the infrastructure improvements and all these other improvements that you have to, that you suggest, because the city has gotten in this sort of a situation before, and we don't want to make the same mistake twice. But I think it has incredible potential, and I will do everything I can to help move this project forward. I mean, there are some issues. I think you'll be very sensitive to the neighbor, to the Seaview, that building that's right in the middle of your project. But there are gigantic buildings in New York City that have been built around little 2- and 3-story brownstones as well, and they've been successful and effective. It's a very compelling presentation, guys. Very, very nice.
Thank you.
Tim? Tracy?
You want to maybe save me for last? I might take the long, it might be easy.
Need all night?
Well, it might be easiest,
If you
and
wanna-
especially if I hear what other people have to say. It may deal with some of my,
Any
But it's
comment?
true for all of
Questions?
us, Tracy.
No, I
I
just
know.
want to piggyback on what the other two gentlemen said. I think it's a great project and something that we've needed for a long time. And I'm sure, Rob, you'll be in touch with Jim and the Cundens on their keeping them safe, and then the setbacks and all that are going to come down the road. So good luck, and let's keep moving forward with it.
Teresa?
Thank you for the level of commitment and investment that you have made and that you're planning to make in Daytona Beach and in the Main Street redevelopment area. From what I can see, it is
Can you put the mic?
are you on, Teresa?
I am actually.
Okay.
But it is a very impressive, to say the least, project, and I feel like I'm in Dubai. You know, I understand the point of this meeting is so that we can give you valid direction for the next go-round. And I would only say that my comments would mirror that of is it the development staff that has already looked at this and commented?
Yeah.
Is that who they were?
Fairly.
The development staff. So I read all of those, and I shared a lot of those questions, and I'm sure that's to come. And all I can say is at this point, it is a very impressive project, and Mr. Merrill, you touched on many of the issues that could prove thorny issues. So I'm very satisfied with it at this level, and I'll leave it at that.
Dustin?
Thank you. I agree with the same comments. I've stayed at the Petro Palace in St. Petersburg, and if this is anything like that, I think that we're lucky to have it.
Yes.
It's a great hotel, and this appears to be in the same manner in terms of quality. And so I appreciate you bringing it to us. I appreciate you selecting Daytona Beach, and I agree with everything that's been said. I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Suzanne?
Hi. Alexi, if I'm just on a social note, my sister cruised to St. Petersburg a couple years ago, and she told me, she said, it's absolutely the most spectacular, beautiful city she's ever seen. And this summer, I met a Russian student at the mall. She's working here for the summertime. And we've become pen pals, and she's coming back next year, and I hope to go to Russia to visit her. So you're like the second Russian I've met in 3 months in Daytona Beach. So welcome. You know, as a designer, and I've had worked with large developers for the last 40 years across the United States. And it's been my experience that oftentimes rigid regulations and rules, such as setbacks that are in code compliance regulations, oftentimes thwart futuristic and forward design, such as your spectacular buildings demonstrate. And the essence of the air and the light that comes through the buildings is astounding to me. I lived in high rises in Fort Lauderdale and Miami for many, many years, and I used to always say, and I lived in the one that had the most glass, by the way, and it was the Renaissance in Pompano Beach. And I used to always ask, why do these buildings on the seaside, why don't they have all glass walls? And so I am just so overwhelmed and astounded by the beautiful design that you have done on these buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments?
Wait.
Oh. Good try. I tried.
I didn't.
Tracy, will you get me out of my?
Out of your comfort
All right,
zone. Okay. Just start writing, Rob. Okay. First. Okay. First off, I will say, looking at whatever funds this might produce as being where you're paying your public benefits out of, that is not the way to be looking. I would say that means that you are restricting the CRA, this board from advising the CRA on how maybe to spend those funds elsewhere. I think a true public benefit for everything that you're asking needs to be a benefit that you pay for, not that you get out of what you're hoping to generate out of this project. So I do think that is very critical. I have a problem with the fact, I'm not even sure you actually read the design guidelines, and I realize there's a difference of opinion on some of this, but just hitting one part of it, a monolithic structure, you're not supposed to have a monolithic block structure. The very fact that you are putting this in without meeting any setbacks, other than the fact that you have the width of the Oak Ridge ramp, because you're building to within 5 feet of one setback, one side yard line, and I don't know what it is on the other, because this is not, but it means that you are going to have a monolithic structure, glass or not. You're covering up the Oak Ridge access with 4 stories of more concrete, glass, whatever, and when you come across the Oak Ridge Bridge, you're going to see a wall. That's all you're going to see is a wall, okay? I do think that there's a reason for having some of the varied roof lines in there. What you did on the ocean side shows that there's the capability of doing this with like where you had the bar area and some of those roof lines. I think you could do something a lot more interesting to help get rid of that wall effect, because the other thing you do have to remember, you are building in a redevelopment area, but you're also building in a non-redevelopment area which has its own set of guidelines, and I think that you need to look at those a lot closer. The other thing, one of the other things that you're supposed to do in the guidelines, and I don't see that this does it at all, is let me see, where is it? It's, you have to be aware of the environment, the wind, the sun, you are getting rid of all of the views for anybody who is not a guest in your, either owns a condo or is a guest in your hotel. You are getting rid of sky, you are getting rid of ocean, you are going to be affecting the ability of the wind. You are going to be creating a greenhouse effect. No matter if sea dunes stands or not through the construction, you will be creating a greenhouse effect. You will be raising the temperature over them. You will be shadowing them. I don't know if they have a pool. I haven't been there. Okay. But you know, I think that you need to be a little bit more aware of your neighbor more than just, we promise not to knock you down when we build this, okay? The open space, there's supposed to be a lot of open space features, which again, you do very well on the beach side. I'm not sure with just 5 feet of sidewalk and then having to dodge pillars, which is what your canopy is comprised of out on A1A, and getting away from that, coming within, you know, like right up to that, I'm not sure that meets that open space. I don't know if there's a way of being able to maybe cantilever it a bit more or something that would give you a true open space or more open space. I don't know how big those columns are, but we get very packed here. The thing to remember is this is a special event town. Our sidewalks get packed. I don't know how much dodging will be going along there, just something to think about. I don't know if you left landscaping out of this just because you haven't gotten to that part, but I would certainly hope that we see more than a few palm trees. When you look at our landscaping especially, that's one of the ways, and that was a comment that was made by staff, that Ms. Doan agreed with many of those comments or all of those comments. One of the things that is done quite often for public benefit is increased landscaping. I see a dearth of landscaping here. And again, I know this sounds like I'm being, I tend to be very detail oriented. It doesn't, again, mean I'm against the project, but I do think that this could be better, especially when I've gone on your all's website and I've seen some of your other designs, okay? One of the things we have, and I'm not sure, maybe you didn't read or it never came up in conversation, one of the things that we actually prohibit in this town is the amount of highly reflective glass this actually is. And it's a prohibition. It may not be in the redevelopment side. It is a prohibition on the north side tower. It's in Article 18. We prohibit any variances, whether they're in a PD or not, from side and front yard setbacks. There's no waiver of that. So you need to be very creative in how you're asking for that, and I mean really come up to snuff with these public benefits. I personally don't think more ballrooms that the public has to pay for is a public benefit. Okay, I mean, I'm saying true public benefits. Right. We haven't seen, and I know this is very, very early, haven't seen any of the parking calculations, any of the FAR calculations, I don't know what this density works out to. I would be really interested in that when it comes down to it. And I would be very, 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 very interested, following up what Mr. Webster said, this is salty here. If that robotic parking thing, if that's down, how long is it down? What backup plans do you have for the many times that it may quit working and very likely will quit working? Then what do you do for your parking? So there definitely needs to be, I think, some backup for that. If there's not, I think you're in a world of hurt every time it's down. The other thing that I would actually say, one of the other things you're supposed to do according to our code, and I don't think because Oak Ridge is there, that you can count that as the public access you're supposed to provide. When you have 399 feet or less of oceanfront, it's 10 feet. A dedicated public right-of-way that the public can walk down. It's supposed to be landscaped. It's supposed to be lighted. I don't see any provision for that here because it seems you've taken up every square inch north to south with all of your project. The public deserves a right-of-way. That's part of our code. And it's been part of our code for quite a while. We had a project 3 months ago, that came and didn't ask for any variances. They met all of the code. I realize this is a different style architecture, and I know you have this flat roof, but I think, again, you could do more with this architecture, and you are going to have to address the public access. and it's not Oak Ridge. And I'll stop there.
All right. Do you have any?
You knew I was going to do this, you guys. They let me be bad cop.
And you did it nicely.
But you do it so well.
Yes, you do.
Well, thank you.
Do we have any public comments? Jim?
Chairman, board members, I'm Jim Morris. I'm here on behalf of Mike and Polly Kundit. They own the Sea Dunes. I have only brief comments. We've come here tonight just to listen, try to learn. I know that you're doing the same thing. We appreciate your comments. The Kundit family has owned this property for 53 years. They continue to own it. And while we've had conversations with the property owners, I want you to understand this is not at all about trying to sell the Kundit's property. They haven't got an agreement to sell it, aren't trying to sell it. We're simply interested in protecting their property rights, and the questions that you've raised tonight, I think, address that, and we'll continue to be involved in the process. The letter that I sent you, you'll notice, wasn't argumentative or attempting to defeat anything, particularly as it relates to the code questions. I think what we want to know in part, and what we want you to know, is what's the envelope with the code, what's the envelope proposed with the development, and how do you find what the proper approach to that should be. And Mr. Libby, you mentioned balance, and that's really the question for us right now. We're simply here to watch and learn and participate with you. We thank you for the time, thank the applicant for their presentation. It's certainly a fantastic job on that, and we'll be seeing you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Cranberry Avenue. The last time I was here with a building of this size, it was Ocean Walk. I could see the beach from my bedroom window, and everybody was worried about the size of the building. Once you go past a floor or so, it doesn't matter how tall a building is. I think this is a statement. It will be a tremendous statement for that area, for the city. It is just that dynamic looking a property. It is very upscale. We need that drastically. With the view from the Oak Ridge Bridge, there's about 200 feet between these buildings. So when you're coming over the Seabreeze Bridge, you're not going to see the lower level. When you're up that high, you're going to see straight through this two towers. It's going to be a fantastic view. I'm glad that they left that huge space between the two towers. I think it's a good location for us right now because equal distance between Seabreeze and the Ocean Walk shops is this property. And our tourists love to walk that area. It gives them something to visit. We made a mistake in the first 3 blocks north of Main Street. We put parking garages up to the sidewalk. They have nothing to do from Main Street until they hit this Ocean Walk. Now they will have something else. I'm glad they're doing that and not putting in parking garages. I'm glad that they are putting in the east-west so that we will have not too much shade on the beach. I'm glad it's a contemporary building that you will find in any of the better tourist destinations around the world. I think it's a good thing that it's 500 hotel rooms within walking distance of the Ocean Center. We drastically need that as well. Again, in their diagrams, you see one with trees down Oak Ridge. A second one has the parking spaces. I would ask you to very seriously doubt doing it, what's a good term for this, half-baked? Because when you look at that, you don't want to see this nice set of trees and these 3 parking spaces. It really sends it off balance. It has to be both. We have to think of the future. When people see that, it has to be the best possible impression that we can give them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public? All righty.
I did have just one other comment. In looking at this piece of art makes me think, and I realize art's in the eye of the beholder, but that curlicue thing, I really hope you do, if you do something artistic, something with a little bit more substance. That, honest to gosh, it looks like the news van is there. But whatever you do, that again, you keep in mind salt. If that's all metal, that's not going to stay all metal. so.
Even stainless.
Even stainless, it's whatever it is, but it's not going to stay like that.
We have our art expert right over here. What do you think?
Yes.
It's a matter
Good.
of maintenance. If it's maintained, it could last for 1,000 years, if it's maintained. Salt or no salt.
Rob, anything else?
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
We appreciate it. Look forward to
We're
working
gonna have
with
some
you.
stuff that we need to clean up. Do you want to take a break just for a second while we
No,
get
we'll
this
just
out
keep
of your way?
going. We'll just ignore you. Okay, next, our ongoing parking discussion, dealing with the
I
Ocean
have
Center
no
and
idea.
such.
I
I
have
have
no
a
idea with the
brief bit
glasses.
of news on that,
With the
and Reed,
glasses,
help me
I
out,
don't know
correct
who
me
that
if I'm
is.
wrong, but I talked to Wagner this morning. He advised me that the city staff and the county staff have gotten together. They've actually gone out and gotten prices on various systems for collecting parking fees and such within the Ocean Center lots, and it's now at the point where they've got that information, and hopefully our county manager and city manager within the next few weeks, they're hoping, will get together and talk and try and figure out which way they want to go, trying to figure out whether the county should be in full control or whether the city should, or which way or whatever. I kind of suggested that maybe taking it from the approach of a parking authority that could have the infrastructure in place and could collect the fees and expenses and maintain all lots, whether they're city or county, as opposed to having the county have its infrastructure over its lots, the city ended up with some of its own lots to have its own infrastructure in place, having more or less a partnership parking authority arrangement which could oversee any of the lots and share the expenses and keep the overhead down, and kind of approach it from that way. And maybe that way the county could control its own lots, the city could control its own lots, but do so in a collective manner. And that was my thoughts on it. Just thought I'd pass that on. Gary?
Yeah, I think we all received a letter from Rich Wilcox, and I'd like to thank Reed and the city for any follow-up that we might have. I don't know whether or not the letter and the attachment helps or or not, but I'm glad that we at least now have the actual facts on that 90 parcel, that 90 space parcel.
Right. Don't thank us too quickly, because we haven't had that communication back. We're talking internally, and we
Okay.
will get back to Katona Partners.
But I'd like to thank Mr. Wilcox for at least letting us know
Right.
what the nature of the property is, and that it could be available under similar terms to partnerships the city has already exercised with other private owners. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Just, if I could, just add one more thing on the, because there are other parking lots, parking spaces. You see a lot of open space there, so there are other property owners that we've been talking to. We're still pursuing ways that we could relocate some of the parking in the future for where we have Joe's Crab Shack leasing a smaller lot that probably serves better the Main Street businesses, because it's directly behind the surf shop and some of the other businesses there, and I think it would go a long way to filling some of those needs. So as soon as we can find a way to accomplish that, we're gonna do that. I think the biggest concern we have right now goes back to finances, and our priority to complete some of the work to acquire land around breakers and the pier. And so as we go forward, our focus of our money and what we do, regardless of our conversations with all these other property owners, if it takes money, it's mostly going to be right around that breakers and the pier. Until I hear differently, that's our focus.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more question on parking? I noticed that on Main Street from time to time there are cones out in automobile parking spaces, and reserving those spaces for motorcycles or for bicycles or other kind of vehicles. Is that a city plan, or are those property owners on Main Street just taking advantage of the spaces in front of their places of business? Do you know?
I don't know. I'd have to look around and ask if anyone else knows that, but I don't have an answer to why there's cones out there, and I guess I'm not really seeing them, Gary. Unless if I see a cone, I usually think somebody's been doing some work, or there's a pothole or something else in the way.
The city did repair some of the brick pavers recently.
That could be.
So there are no special dispensations that any property owners who own businesses on Main Street have over the use of public parking in front of their buildings?
Should not have any
Okay.
special deals. There's, except for when there's an event and somebody's applied for the use of the right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to say thank you for just doing all that you're doing. I'm working with the county. I know that could be frustrating, and and obviously what you're doing is benefits all the businesses on Main Street and the Boardwalk area.
I'm really not doing much, just trying to keep them moving. And Reed, does what I explained concur with your understanding of the status?
Yes, it does. I checked in today, and there's an attempt to try to establish the communication. We've sent over a lot of information to the county, and we just have to have that direct conversation again between the two primary negotiators.
Well, if you could just pass on, I think, our consensus encouragement that occur expeditiously and move on, we would appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to make a comment.
Suzanne?
I'd like to thank you because I think personally you spearheaded that and made it happen, and it's really a welcome relief for parking on Main Street. But I know you were the guy that made it happen.
No, they're making it happen.
No, I agree. I second.
Thank you
What
so much.
All right.
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When your discussions with the county, when it comes to the county-owned parking lots, is it discussion as far as being pay or free parking lots? What I'm getting at is there any discussion about starting to charge for some of these off-beach park? Every time conversation we have, it's all about money. We don't have the finance, but all these parking lots, the county don't seem to be free. Sunsplash, Tom Rennick, Andy Romano that they're building now. Has the charging for parks ever been part of y'all discussion?
Actually, that's the concept with respect to the Ocean Center lots and such, is being metered, or something along those lines.
Yeah, because last time I see it more free parking lots that we built.
No, our discussions is trying to turn them into a profit center, so we can cover the expense and then perhaps expand the parking using the revenues off of that.
That's I was getting at, taking the revenue and buying more and more.
Yeah, that's
every
my
conversation we have, city and countywide, we don't have the money to do this.
So they will actually take the money that they make off the parking and purchase more, or what have you?
That's certainly what we would hope we could move along those lines. Yeah.
In 2001, Mr. Chairman, there was a call from this board to establish a parking authority to do just that. 2001. All you have to do is live long enough.
Another 10 years, Gary, you may see it. Okay, moving on. E-zone regulations, Gary. Or Reed, I'm sorry.
Okay. If you talking about parking and the ideas that are conveyed about parking management, all that is in the E-zone plan. So it's again, we have to keep picking up these, at least the smaller of the two volumes of our E-zone plan, and look at that. And what we have done recently is to bring forth the public review draft that was completed by Clarion. Now that is out there. There's no formal meeting process that's been established yet. We wanted to start with this board. I don't expect to get all your comments this evening, but you're welcome to dive into this and ask questions or provide comments. All of that is going to go back to the staff and to Clarion, so that the minutes reflect that. We'll pass that along to Clarion as well. We won't dilute that information or just make a report and summarize. I'll make sure that they get the minutes of that, of the meeting, so that they understand your questions, your comments, concerns about what's in this plan. And certainly you're welcome to, anytime, send by email or some other way individually to me any comment that you have or a question, or pick up the phone, and we'll do it that way.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions. Well, one, I was looking over some of the setback requirements that are on both the Main Street businesses and the Boardwalk businesses and some of the Atlantic Avenue businesses. The way this is laid out is a little weird, but let me start with the Boardwalk. The Boardwalk.
Can you tell us what page you're on?
Okay.
Just so we're all in the same.
And may I, if anybody does not have the E-Zone publication, I'll be happy to get one out there to you.
Yeah, do you have extra?
I got, how many? Put your hands up again, please. Okay. Yeah, let's see, how many do I have? Yes, and for Teresa. All right. Let's see if I have.
Okay, on page 9, I guess the boardwalk, according to this, is the existing shops on the boardwalk are RT2, which is type 2 retail. So on page 9, if you go under type 2 retail, there is a currently the boardwalk does not have any setback requirements, and if you go to page 9, there's a front yard setback of 8 feet, a side street setback of 8 feet, and a rear setback of 10 feet. So using the Mardi Gras as an example, because I can't talk about my confidential
Anything else?
agreement that I have,
Okay.
so I'll use the Mardi Gras as an example. My 7,500 square foot building that I have on the boardwalk, which is 50 by 150, if you implement all those setbacks, that 7,500 square foot building becomes 488 square feet. I lose like half, my building right there, and obviously using it, and just in theory, I also don't like the fact that a lot of the property owners on Main Street who are in a similar situation, which if you, and some of the property owners on A1A also, who may not be aware that we're talking about setback, adding setback requirements that are more stringent, weren't notified. I mean, going on to, and I know you're going to say that we have public meetings and what have you, but over here, okay, I'm go from RDB4 to RT2, okay? Then you have HL, which I guess I have a friend named Gary who has an airbrush store and a couple other things in that area, but also abuts some of the properties on Main Street also, because they consider that hotel lodging for the future, which I don't see a hotel ever being built over there, but that's besides the point. Now, if you look under hotel lodging on page 7, when they talk about it, they say at least 30 feet behind the building facade to be used for retail sales, but underneath that part, it says the principal remaining parts of the building shall be limited to lodging uses. Okay, well, that pretty much takes all the retail, after you go past the 30 feet, then the rest of it is supposed to be principal use is supposed to be limited to lodging uses. So they're taking what is existing retail and they're forcing these property owners to go towards lodging. I mean, I always saw this as a blueprint of some sort, where you say, hey, if you're going to have a hotel, I mean, this might be beautiful if you had one developer come into the city of Daytona Beach and buy up all the acreages all around and build a brand-new city for us. But that's not what we're doing here, you know? Everybody is a property owner, everybody has their property bounded by this, and then suddenly they're delegating to me that, you know, I'm gonna be partly retail, but then later I'm gonna be lodging, and, well, this area does. In my case, they don't do that because I'm type 2 retail, but they basically take half my building and make it setbacks. Then I go on to RDB5, the Atlantic Avenue retail, and I started looking at their 10 feet front, 10 feet rear, 10 feet side. There's a zoning on Main Street called MU, which is, I'm trying to find where that is. Oh, mixed use, okay. And so they're adding 8-foot front, 8-foot side, and 10-foot rear to those businesses on Main Street, which currently have 0, which I'm sure the same impact that would have happened to me is going to happen to those Main Street businesses. There's another.
Well, Dino, basically, you're saying we have situations now where there's no setbacks required with respect to side setbacks, boardwalk,
Right.
Main Street, et cetera. And now we're imposing side setbacks, which don't seem to make a whole lot of sense, that you should have those buildings slapped right up beside each other.
Right.
And such. So we need an explanation as to why that should be reasonable, and you're saying it really shouldn't anyways, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So, okay.
And when you throw, and when you throw in the smaller than normal lots they are,
Yeah.
these setbacks don't make sense at all. I mean, at all. I was,
Yeah.
It makes sense if the thing is to force people into consolidating lots to move the bigger project and get away from smaller properties.
It makes
And
sense,
I-
you know, said if you got one guy coming in buying up the whole thing.
And I also retain legal representation if he would like to speak to this too, you know?
Come on, Jim.
okay.
We're going to hear you sooner or later.
Well, I would like to keep it in context. I am here for Lisa and Dino. And of course, Dino's already pointed out the issues with the setbacks on the boardwalk. But the other thing that I thought of as I was looking through it is you had an overall project plan for the boardwalk that hasn't been built yet, but it anticipated basically similar form as the old historic boardwalk has always been. So you may certainly impose upon the ability of that developer who's still there, still has property, and the ability to make that project work with the setbacks. When you look at what the traditional businesses on the boardwalk have been, regardless of the rest, and the uses that are required there,
Yeah.
it's important because you've got a requirement, and I think it's on page 7. The ground floor of buildings facing the boardwalk shall be devoted to principal retail sales and service uses for a depth of at least 30 feet. And then you've got the relationship. The majority of those businesses, as far as I understand them, are not retail sales building. They do have food service, they do have some retail sales, but they are primarily amusement activities. So when you get to those components, I think it's important to keep in mind that it would change the overall texture of what the boardwalk has always been. And I think when you hear people refer to it as a historic boardwalk, et cetera, a part of that is configuration and the type of uses that you have there. They can be modernized, but this set of codes would, I think, undo that completely. So you look at the Pastelakis' businesses, but you also look at the larger scale of what's intended to be a combination redevelopment hotel and related uses that I know to date at least have anticipated some form of boardwalk style uses. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, you know, Reed, there was some discussion with the consultant about these issues prior, you know, to the issuing of this report. Do you know whether the concerns were just rejected, or they would like a whole set of the same concerns to be brought forward again? Seems like we're going down the same street.
I don't think it got to the detail that we're talking about now about the boardwalk.
And Main Street.
Main Street.
And Main Street.
We
but
talked about.
Well, the issue, which could be setbacks, could be everything else, is that they have tried to transpose as closely as possible the recommendations that are in the E-zone
Master plan,
and
yeah.
transfer it to it. That doesn't mean that this is now the time to start to say, okay, that's your guideline, that's your plan. Let's get real about what's going to work here, and this is when we start to have that discussion.
And it seems like it would make a whole lot of sense if we could see graphics showing what the setbacks are within an area, and then how this is proposing to change it.
And you know, we actually are having some of that done in 3D right now, because as we've walked through this, we have some of those same questions about each of these items, about how they work or don't work. And so we have a in-house architect, someone who can do that in the 3D and give some more context to how this is going to look and work. So when you start talking about arcades along Main Street,
Yeah.
and those setbacks and the overhangs and the amount of space, we're actually doing that. It's just that we weren't ready for this evening to do some kind of a presentation of that. But we're developing that tool right now, so we can come back and
I'd like to see
offer that
too,
up.
'cause otherwise I think we're going to spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Reed, or Gary.
Reed, I don't know whether you saw an email that circulated around about 2 weeks ago when this document came out by members of the Historic Preservation
I have not.
Advisory Board and other people who felt that the weeks they put into developing some recommendations, especially for
nowhere.
Main Street, were totally, weren't addressed. As a matter of fact, I think they were concerned that the transmittal got lost in the mail because it's not even mentioned in here. Do you know anything about whether or not that board was asked to participate? I think they were asked to participate with some concepts in this first round of the E-zone, because I went through and looked at it again, which is why I left my copy at home, and I don't see any of their recommendations, even the most modest ones, included in any way in this report. Do you know if they just missed each other?
That's a good question. I never saw the email that you're referring to,
Okay.
but I don't know. Did anything come to the meeting? So maybe there's some information that our staff has.
Okay.
We'll make sure, if not, I'm going to be asking someone to send me that information.
Okay.
So I know what this is. But this is the time to get that information. It's also the time for our staff to be discussing that with the Historic Preservation Board.
Well, that's where you need to start then,
Right.
with the Historic Just ask
Well-
them for another copy of their recommendations on the E-zone plan.
Right, because it's not just the plan now, it's these regulations that we're
E-zone
starting
regulations.
to fine tune. What is this going to look like? Is this going to work? Is this going to be streamlined enough that we're not making this more burdensome for everybody?
Now, you realize that the Historic Preservation Advisory Board might give you their recommendations on the E-zone plan and assume you're going to work them into regulations, and that's not their mission nor their expertise, and that might be where we have missed the lip in the cup, have sort of missed connections here. But it was a pretty hot email, and I should have probably sent a copy of it to you, but I did not want to keep this thing, give this email any legs, and I'll try and get you a hard copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we need to see some graphics to show the comparison between what there was versus what's proposed, so we can short circuit a lot of the analysis. But I'm not looking for a regulations that's going to substantially eliminate a Main Street by putting in a bunch of side setbacks and additional front setbacks and such. I want buildings built side by side. I want it to be traditional Main Street in that realm with some open spaces. That's one thing, but that's part of the E-zone concept. But And we don't need to be, destroying the concept of individual owners along a boardwalk either.
And I think we've already, we get it too, just like the public, and we're concerned about what we saw, particularly on the setbacks, when it doesn't seem to match up with the drawings that we've all
So
seen.
these will be addressed with the consultant.
Well, again, the staff will address it, but it's, I think we have to have everyone's comments. Don't depend on staff to guess what we're all thinking, so there'll be the...
But you're working on some graphics along those lines.
Yes, we are.
And then
Because-
we have those, and I think we can
Yeah.
deal a whole lot more efficiently with the issue, is what I'm trying to say.
So I would still give you some more comments.
And that, I'm not
Yeah.
expecting you not to.
Not to.
Right.
I do find it strange, some of the, just some of the actually weird numbers that they seem to have picked for building heights.
I know.
Not less than 34 feet, not more than 40, 18 feet. I mean, where are these numbers coming from? Because,
No, but
well, that is a guideline. That may not be a reality, because these are some 46 feet, 60. I mean, these are some really strange things when you start looking at this.
And when they say
just
that,
the
they
building
don't-
height. Wait, now besides the setbacks, okay, and then I would want to be really clear where it says, and we're not allowing any one-story buildings in some of at all in some of these places. So I again, that's going to get rid of what's there. But the other thing, when I look at this, and I didn't realize there was an email about historic, every single illustration that's on here is all some new kind of modern architecture. There is not anything that deals with historic adaptive reuse of what's there. Nothing that I saw, maybe I didn't read the fine print somewhere, but it seems to me there should be, when you have historic, you can actually get variances from certain codes in terms of elevator. I mean, there needs to be something that really addresses the fact of how historic this area is and what's in there. And when I got to the alcoholic beverage sales establishments, I read the little note at the bottom that you guys based this on Fort Lauderdale, okay? And you didn't, thank you staff, include open containers that they can be carried all over the E-zone. But I do have a little problem with, we can basically have no distance requirements between bars, between package stores, between anybody that's selling anything alcoholic. I think we might want to look at that just in terms of, we're not Fort Lauderdale, some of the policing problems we have. And I had a curious thing. What is alcoholic beverage consumption on vessels within the E-zone district, and that they can sell? Who is selling something off their boat? What is that actually referring to? That's the very last page, number 4.
The party boat.
Yeah, what is that?
It could be a boat.
We're saying someone could have a boat in the Halifax River, and if there's a way for me to get to it, I can go buy alcohol off a boat in the Halifax River?
Sure.
You're going to have those Sonic girls riding up to them.
That's what it says.
That's what it says.
Why would we do that?
They do it in Fort Lauderdale. People sell liquor on the boats.
They're trying to do it in New Smyrna right now.
How do you get out to the boat? Am I?
A dock.
You're in
A
a
dock.
Oh, so, okay,
Or it's in
so,
low water, it's south of,
At the
bottom of
marina.
low water.
so I can,
Go into the surf, not the surf, but the low, little the land comes up in the river when the tide.
so I can walk out onto the beach and just buy something off a boat?
And vessels, boats go up there, and all these people are on the rise of land above the water, and they're all being served liquor off the boats.
Yeah, party boats. In the ocean.
No, when you're
Not in the ocean, in the river.
I
well.
can assure you that the
I'm-
water in that portion of the intercoastal
No, they're not gonna wanna walk in that.
impossible to do that in.
Was
A
that?
flatboat party
Was
boat.
that idea actually in the, I didn't check that back out in the, was there something in the E-zone master plan that
No.
said sell this off boats?
No,
Because, I'm sorry, I don't think
I'm,
that
I'm not
belongs
aware of
in-
that, and again, Clarion sometimes takes liberty.
Yeah,
Even
I
though
would-
staff could have thought this up or used the idea, I think that they've been challenged too to look at some of the other communities and
Well, I don't think that was
in
the law.
Florida in particular, and just look at some of the other land development code pieces and offer some suggestions. And my guess is that's one of them.
Well, that one's a poor
Okay.
one.
Tracy, any other
No, that
comments
was,
tonight?
no, I'll wait for the
Dino's
graphics.
got his hand back up, and we've
Okay.
already been past Dino, but, go ahead, Dino.
Okay. Well, one, I'm assuming when they talk about height, they're talking about the mean high water tide going up from that point up. Is that correct, staff? When you say 40 feet above, 40 feet in height, are you?
Not high water.
No, this is
Ground.
building height. This
Building
is-
height, okay, so you're talking building height, okay.
Yeah, building
So
height.
Okay, so, all right.
tide.
Yeah, it's not
The other
tide.
thing is on page 27, if you look at the master plan of the E-zone, one of the issues on their page 17 talked about address and manage itinerant vendor issues to ensure benefit for the entire Daytona Beach economy. So you would tend to think that they're saying manage it. Then you go to the implementation of it, which is on 27, and it turns around and starts talking about having outdoor dining, outdoor concerts and neighborhood scale events, street performances, and outdoor markets. Now, is outdoor markets, what does that mean?
That's not, would that be like a flea market?
It could be any number of things, depending on what we want to define as an outdoor
Well, to me,
market.
it sounds like a tournament merchant setup or just a flea market type of setup, which I think is totally against what I want to see on Main Street. You know, I mean, there's a point, I mean, this board has been reviewing Bike Week and Biketoberfest, allowing it for 10 days. So only now I see it written as a standard for Type 1 retail for Main Street.
But there's been discussion, maybe before this board, and most of you were seated here, where there has been discussion about farmers markets, getting a market out there on Main Street. It's not like that has not been discussed.
Okay, so
in
you're
the
saying-
past. I'm going to.
Well, it scares me when
So
I
you'd
see
have to
markets in the.
you'd have to define it very,
Market, what you mean by market.
Understand. The definition is important if you're going to have something like that.
Okay.
very
You
precise.
typically, we're very careful about markets anywhere else, and you're talking about these special activities or special events.
Like the Holly Hill Market that just folded, that kind of a market where you have food vendors and wine salesmen and things like.
But this is continual, I mean, the way this is phrased, it would be 7 days a week type of market.
Part of that comes out of the E-zone plan with the pop-up type of stores and that whole concept that they were trying to wrap into part of this. And we ended up with Jazz Alley at Noble Alley and some of those different concepts that they were looking at to liven up Main Street in addition to the stores themselves. So I don't think it's very refined here. But I think that was where some of that's coming from.
And that last part also on the same properties on Main Street that are marked MU for mixed uses, it also talks about the principal uses of the remaining parts of the building shall be limited to lodging or residential uses on the bottom of page 26. So they're taking a mixed use and they're basically saying that at least the first 30 feet to be retail, but the principal of the remaining is going to be lodging. Or residential, which is not consistent with what we have on Main Street.
No, that's exactly correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't like it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you're misreading it, because it's saying at least 30% of it should be retail. Whatever remain, if they don't use the entire parcel,
for that purpose, then it has to be mixed.
It says principal remaining parts of the building shall be limited
Yeah,
to.
but what's the first part say? It says at
least.
At least. It doesn't say at maximum. It says
Oh,
at
I
least.
understand that.
So I mean,
Because
it's
it could be 50 feet, the
Okay,
first
but
50 feet.
I'm sorry, you guys got to get real here. If you can have a bar right next to a bar, right next to a bar, right next to a bar, right next to a package store, right next to a vessel, do you, and they're open from what is it, until 3 o'clock in the morning, from 10 a.m. till 3 a.m., do you honestly think that anyone in their right mind is going to live there other than an 18-year-old?
I know.
I mean, does anyone here really think that?
But do you really?
They
think,
won't.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, do you really think people are going to live on Main Street?
Well, that's what he's saying.
That's what I'm trying to say, is
That's
that
what
this
he's
is,
saying.
No,
And so to say that, yes, I see what you're going, oh, at least. But then to say, I don't think that's where residential belongs.
No.
We all agree.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Well,
But it
so
says
you would take
principal
out the
remaining. That's what
principal,
I'm saying.
that's what you, it shouldn't even
Right.
be
They
in there.
shouldn't
That
say
should not be
principal remaining. That's what I'm
residential
trying
on
to
Main
say.
Street.
Oh, they want to have residential.
Yes.
Unless they go up.
Upstairs.
upstairs,
go
fine,
up.
but they're talking about the ground level here.
Yeah, but how deep are those parcels on Main Street anyway?
Well, let's say they're 150 feet, or let's say
I
they're,
don't think anybody's 150
50
feet back
feet,
there.
I think they're what, 70 feet?
Yeah.
50 to
So
yeah.
So once you get back in the buildings and then behind, you're going to use the building for whatever it is. You're not going to take off the front 30 feet and then put something in the back half of the building.
okay, but that same HL, represents places on A1, A2, like Gary's store.
Okay, and how deep is A18 of codes? We're talking about parcels that.
It's bigger than 50 feet.
Yeah, I know. It's 75 feet. It's the same depth as my property.
Okay, 75 feet.
75 feet.
So at least 30 feet is going to be,
Has to be at least 30 feet.
okay,
but
so
if he wants
let's
to
say
go,
40,
all of it can
let's
be.
say 40 feet.
but all of it can be retail.
But principal residential.
If you don't use,
Only
if you
on-
want to keep building.
Only on the ground floor can all of it be retail. If you build anything else, this says it has to be residential.
And just go.
I don't think that's what you want in the east zone on Main Street.
But just go across the street to Ocean Walk, where look at what second and third floor retail does. There's nothing.
But the E-zone plan calls for the second floors and
Yeah,
such.
and that's
try
where
to
they want to
be
do that,
residential.
and they want to do little
3
that's where
o'clock
they.
or not.
That's where they talk
Well,
about
the
suites.
issue is, do you need to have things blaring till 3 a.m. because no one's going to live within blocks of it if they are. So
Let's and the bartender
May I say
will live there.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the vision of this is my interpretation of it. If you go to any city, including all the seaside resorts in Florida, the last 20 years, starting in the 80s, the vision is for a mixed-use walking village, and they have beautiful retail stores like Starbucks and bookstores and things like that, and then they have loft living above. It's all
Above.
through New York, but I think that's what the vision is. I
Okay.
don't think they're thinking about bars open till 3 o'clock and people living above bar. They're talking about when Main Street transforms into this updated trend movement to get people to come back and live in the cities and out of the suburbs. And I think that's what the architects envision. Don't you think that's right, Reed?
Yeah, and I think whether it's the vacation rentals and some of the other types of, when we say residential living, it's not where the kids and a mom and a dad and everyone else show up with their pets and that's where I'm going to live.
It's resort vacation.
It's going to be, you're going to get, some people are going to be singles, but this is not going to be inexpensive housing. When you rebuild there, you're paying for living next to the beach side that we all envision as being a little more upscale and costing a little more money than probably it does right now.
Yes, I think Palm Beach's town center that they built out in the 90s is a really good example, I think, of what these architects are envisioning. And it's totally upscale. It's totally a whole new vision for Main Street.
the thing is, what Tracy's saying is, you can't have
You're
both.
not going to get there.
You cannot have wide open bar after bar playing till 3 a.m.
Oh, no, I agree.
and have this upscale community at the same time.
You'll never turn it around with those alcohol
Yeah, so-
and time ordinances.
I think that my assumption is, and I think their assumption is, and I'm speaking for them, but my assumption is this is after Main Street is transformed, and when there
But how is it going to be, it will not transform, is what
Right.
I'm saying.
If it's
with those
inconsistent, it's not gonna
alcohol-
happen.
I think there's two things going on. One is, when you have the, and we're going to have to work on this. I don't think it's where it needs to be on the alcohol. Okay? So staff hasn't gone in here and said, oh, we endorse everything just the way it is.
Right, we could.
And what I would say is what we worked on downtown may be part of a model for what we look at here. And in the downtown, we created what were some wine bars and defined very carefully what that was going to be. The language is crafted
Yep.
so that we aren't going to get the problems that we felt we were going to have in the future if we just let things go the way they were.
But Reed, just to add to the confusion, if you look at the map on page
Actually,
14 of what you gave us, there's a little drawing on the RT1s and on the MU that looks like a blue little picket fence, and to the left of it, on the legend, it says first floor retail required. So you only see a fraction of the building being required retail, and the rest of the building is green or red or what have you. So it almost makes me think that they're trying to say that they want this little section to be retail and the rest of it to be something else, you know?
Permitted use.
So I don't like that, you know? I mean, I'm looking at Main Street. I'm looking right up and down Main Street. I'm looking at everything between Grandview and Wild Olive. I'm looking at everything, I guess west of Oleander, with the exception of the CTU, which that's a cultural place.
This is a good discussion, and I want to continue to hear these comments because
It says draft, right?
Yep.
it
Yeah,
does
that's
say
what we're
draft,
doing.
and the devil's in the details, and we're getting there.
See, I don't know.
And I think will help, as been requested, is to have these graphics and a presentation come back. Now let's look at that RT1, and let's discuss that and start pointing
Well,
to.
can we at least come to the agreement that on the setbacks for Main Street and for Boardwalk, it probably is not a good idea? So that way, you're not going to be freaking me out and having attorneys here and everything at the next meeting, you know?
I just can't get one by you. Okay, what we're going to do is, I think, first of all, we're going to try to keep the mass, the row of building after building after building. The idea, except for the Jazz Alley and some of that, is not to create bigger setbacks, but to create more pedestrian friendly areas underneath the arcades, that sort of thing, so that people aren't going to have to just simply walk down that sidewalk, not have some places to be entertained to go into. I think that's the thinking behind it. Now, is it executed perfectly in this document? No. But we need to make sure we understand conceptually where we all want to go. Because what I would like to do, and it's going to be very important if this board can build some consensus around a few of these ideas in the regs as we go forward here, so that we can send a clear message back to, at some point, this will become the planning board. The planning board's going to say, what did Main Street say? And we need to be clear about what we're going to agree as a whole to go forward, and hopefully that gets into a document that you're all going to support. So as we go forward, I think as I get comments, I'm going to try to bring those back to you as well, so we get feedback here, and am I hearing what you just said, and in addition to
Should
sharing
we
the
set up a
minutes?
workshop with Clarion officials so that we can air out and do what have you, so that way, because I don't want to be wasting an hour of the board's time, at the next time go around. I mean, maybe a lot of the stuff could be settled.
Well, it's typically with Clarion so far that has not been the case. I'm not going to raise your expectations that we'll have Clarion here. I think having the planning staff here and the others that are working on this would be helpful. And then we can have this discussion again with the graphics. You have a little more time now that you've heard each other's comments to some degree. We can revisit this next time.
Okay.
And I knew we don't have all night, I don't think, to do this.
If we are going to revisit it, are we going to have the graphics and such in place to show the comparative as to what's changed?
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
okay.
We can show you number one what's changed, but what's the impact? I think what Dino is saying is, what is the impact on the existing? Because the whole intent here is not to go through here and say you can't have what you have now because you can opt out. But where we get you in the future is if you want to start asking for reoccupancy of a building. You're going to have to start going by the E-zone rules at some point. That's the overlay.
Well,
So
what you're saying is my father-in-law, according to this, is public, is an amenity. Okay, he has Christina's gift, so he's supposed to be green space. So does this go into the land development code? I mean, does his uses get thrown out? I mean, obviously he has a business on the corner of Main Street and Ocean Avenue that's currently a gift shop. Over here is a green public amenity area. So that's your walking area, but nobody's going to donate their land to the city to have walking area, and the city can't use eminent domain to create that walking area. So
it looks like it won't be there.
But zoning-wise, does it change? Because what you're doing is you're creating regulations that are going to go into the land development code. So now is his zoning having a business where people go to walk around but can't buy anything? I mean,
no, you continue your business and what you're doing today.
And if it burned down tomorrow,
he couldn't rebuild.
You would have a problem. Would have a wonderful green space.
Yeah.
Could he sell it?
Sure.
This gets into our we're legal.
This is an eminent domain action right here for properties that are in green. Because what you're saying is that if something happened to his property and it burned, then he wouldn't have a zoning that would allow him to have retail sales.
Is that what it's saying?
So what you're doing is zoning him out of business in the future.
No.
Well, I mean, if you were looking at the 65% rule or something like that, but I think that exists other places in the city where they have these non-conforming uses. So, it's just things that we would have to research and figure out, if it's just something I couldn't tell you right now, but we'd have to take
in other words,
case by
I'm going
case.
to, Jim, just be available at the next meeting too.
Just mark it on your calendar.
I think the guys from Clarion keep watching the Abbott and Costello Who's on First. You know that skit kind of thing, the classic skit, because I think Dino, of course, has a point, but so does Clarion, and that's exactly what they mean.
But Clarion wants a perfect world where somebody could be sitting there sipping a cup of coffee on Main Street and looking at the beach. Okay, that's what he wants. I heard them talking about, they want to have open venues and being able to see the beach from the. It's not going to happen.
Well, it could. It
could.
It could, and things may change.
Uses, yeah.
Well, you can just obscure it down on Oak Ridge. Right. And then they can see the beach down where you are when Stino's property burns down.
Right.
All right.
There's the public intent, and we'll see where this goes, what's in best interest of the community, and the balance of our property rights, Dino. We'll work that out.
Study up this.
Yeah.
Reed's going to come up with a presentation trying to compare it, and then we're going to give our.
Why is this a surprise? This shouldn't be a surprise.
It's not that it's. I asked the question time and time again about that green area.
Yes, he has. He's brought that up consistently through this. He has.
But I didn't realize that it was going to turn into a land development code situation where the uses would actually be taken away. because then it makes it a serious issue. Then this is going to become, this is going to be an issue where my father-in-law alone will take this to court, and we're going to get the J. Smalls of Orlando fighting our, and if you guys don't know who J. Small is, you'll see.
Yeah, we do. We know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Reed, redevelopment projects update. Bring him there.
Okay. I don't recall if last time we talked about this, but the ISB streetscape contract was revised. We expect that to come out next month with some kind of pictures that we can all look at and see some different options for East ISB. We'll have to dream a little bit right now because I don't know where the money will come from to actually implement a plan, but we need to start putting that vision on paper and have some choices about what level we want to go to. In other words, some will cost more than other options, but we're going to get some of that in front of you.
Have a shovel-ready project ready to go?
Like to get there, and then, you know, grants would be great, but we'll see where we go. The wayfinding contract, if I haven't told you, that one is AECom is under contract, and they are working on the research part of that right now. But ultimately, we expect this year to get a clear idea of what that plan is going to look like from the interstate right to the E-zone, and what kind of signage we can expect to have. So we'll have some ideas along the way to react to, get feedback. I don't have an exact schedule yet, but they're preparing that for us. The pier update is in the paper. I mean, you can read it. So it's pretty clear that at the end of this week you won't see the rest of the needle structure. It'll be gone.
Clear, something I heard. Did the Halifax Conservation, Habitat Conservation Plan and the sea turtles put a stop to the demolition of the space needle?
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
You're not allowed to work at night.
No, I haven't heard this.
Oh, yeah. No, it stopped.
It stopped.
Yeah, they shut them down.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
when
so
did
it'll
this
be in the
happen?
paper again tomorrow.
Having
Okay.
heavy vehicles, lit heavy vehicles on the beach.
Yeah.
Causing harm to
You should have used LED lighting.
Okay. Was there a turtle anywhere nearby? Okay. Very good.
Reed, just so you know, there's been one turtle nest from Broadway to Seabreeze in the last 50 years.
And I personally paid for that turtle nest to be
That's right, you did.
caged and make sure that all the hatchlings made it to the water safely.
Thank you.
And Reed, with this E-zone and everything else that city plans on doing, coming online down the road, years from and I know I've said this over and over again, but somebody between the city and the county needs to get together, both entities, get together and really go back to the fish and wildlife and relook at this turtle issue. You guys, a lot of stuff is going to get stopped because of these of turtles, and the science is pretty much flawed.
Well, there
But
is.
nobody seems to want to.
There
And
are-
here we are 25 years later, and we can't even take a dangerous space needle down because they put a crane on the beach. That's crazy.
And a human being's going to get killed.
But we'll save a turtle.
Right.
That we're not going to get for another.
Well, we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
and it's frustrating. I know that we are having some upcoming meetings with county and the federal agencies that are dealing with the turtles. So state and federal and county, city will be having some of those discussions because
And
we
by
have
the
the
way,
lighting issues still to deal with.
If you wonder why the roller coaster isn't there right now, there's similar reasons.
It's killing tourism in Daytona Beach. Turtles. It really, really is. And nobody seems to want to do anything about it. And the county council, the chairman, he's done zip since he's been over there, and it's the single worst thing that's happened to tourism. I know because I've been in the business for over 30 years over there, and the turtle issues is killing your tourism in Daytona Beach.
But the lighting was part of the mitigation plan in the take permit for the driving on the beach.
Right, but-
So it's tied to the driving on the beach.
But if you look at the science.
I mean, it's all
of
about the
of
turtles, but-
Turtles, in order for a turtle not to be disoriented by light, you would have to dim the entire peninsula. Just shutting off your lights on the beach side isn't it, according to the turtle people, isn't going to be enough. You will get distortions from the other side of the river.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm saying in order to do it right, you'd have to darken the entire peninsula. And somebody needs to really look into this, or you're not going to have any tourism later. They're gonna put a stop to some projects like this.
And just so you know, Dwayne Taylor, who used to be our commissioner, sat right there. He was very helpful with the LED lights that are on the Ferris wheel right now, along with Fred Costello and the Volusia County delegation, which also included Evelyn Lynn, because I went to Tallahassee for that meeting. And they were extremely helpful, and that is why the Ferris wheel was given the permit, which that permit took forever to receive.
But there's scientists at Cape Kennedy that study sea turtles, and there's one out of Baltimore, Maryland, and there's one in Amelia Island, that all three of them together said the same thing. We are nuts in this county.
And I will say, driving on the beach is different than having to have something down there to do repair. I mean, what if, God forbid, the whole pier walk collapsed? We can't have something down there to get it off because it's heavy equipment? I mean,
Not without a special permit.
At night.
I think it's because they were doing it at night.
yeah.
Yeah, at night was the problem.
No,
Well,
night
but
is
that
putting
was
the
because of
crane
a,
on the beach.
that was because of a safety issue of the people who were down there during the day.
Obviously.
No, it was because of the open hours of Joe's Crab Shack.
Right.
Yeah, but also there's people there,
There's
so that's a
that
safety
is,
issue.
that area is packed. I mean,
Yeah.
packed anymore. The beach, you can barely move when you're down around there. So, which is great.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Reed.
Oh, I have one last item.
Okay.
That is we put out an RFP for holidays in Daytona Beach for Midtown, Downtown, and Main Street. The Main Street version of that was the ice rink.
Code word for ice rink.
Yeah, it was ice rink. I mean, you read it, it says ice rink. And so we had one response to the ice rink. And I can tell you at this point that there was a meeting. Mr. Nicholson was there. It was public. The selection committee went through its ranking and made a recommendation to
Ranking number one.
Did the 1 out of 1.
Did it
1
rank
out of 1.
one?
That's how it works. And
That
so
guy didn't lose.
actually, if you were there, we'd see we did take some time to comment on some of the issues of the proposal and what's in there, but that was sent up with a favorable recommendation, same operator as last year, with some different parameters in terms of operation. This time around, the deal is this. Right now, the city has been looking at, regardless of who was going to apply, we've been looking at infrastructure work that we would do to upgrade the electrical over there. As you
You've
know,
already done it.
I thought it was
You've
I thought
done.
it was already done.
no. There,
It hasn't been
the-
done since?
that never was taken care of. So now have a type of transformer identified, the power, the specs. We know what we need to do, and we'll have to do it fairly quickly to meet the same timeframes of getting ready in the middle of November to have an ice rink there. So that's where staff is headed in terms of prepping the infrastructure. And basically that transformer would be something that would be alongside the back of the band shell, and then the electrical cable would be pulled out, and because we're not going to dig everything up, And we're going to take that out and along, like you saw last time, and the difference is there'll be a chiller but not a generator there, which will help a lot if we don't have to have the generator and the cost and the noise and everything else that went with it. So the intent is to bring something that is going to be larger than last time, and a tent space that's bigger in terms of more tables where you can sit and put your skates on, because that was part of the issue in the past. Some of the vending that they'll have, so you get that. Some of the things that were kind of looked at last year but never implemented, some of that is what we're looking at. This is by no means a done deal. At this point, there's going to be a negotiation with this one vendor. All of the details of that proposal will be unveiled at some point, but right now their staff has been assigned to negotiate with the vendor. The intent is to have a break-even deal. We're not putting in a subsidy or like we did in the last year, but we're, pardon me?
Subsidy is the rent.
Yeah, the question is, when there's a rent issue and the request is not to have to pay the rent, and that's just something that has to be negotiated. So there's just a request out there as far as how that all works. But the point is, it doesn't take up all of the band shell area, and it'll be located so that we could still have shows and activity, other holiday type events there at that venue. So, and I.
Portalettes, you're going to have portalettes on the boardwalk again? How are you going to handle that?
That's a good question. How that is going to be handled, I don't know. On the bathroom, the portalettes, but
the city's responsibility or the vendor's responsibility?
That'll be negotiated.
Because as you know, it's not a really great solution down there, especially with the chiller, which weeps and sends water across the boardwalk to the ocean side, and it's constantly wet. And then you have portalettes right around the corner there with the offshore breeze. It's really not a great solution.
We'll take suggestions.
I have one.
Yeah.
How about the RFP for the pier for the ride?
I don't know the status of that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know.
Last I heard, it was going good, but.
Okay.
This will be a function of the Department of Parks and Recreation, the ice skating rink. Is that
cultural services?
Cultural services.
Yes.
Okay. Will there be any reporting to us? I mean, didn't really work well last year.
My expectation is there'll be some kind of reporting that'll have to be done.
Okay.
Certainly, numbers.
Okay.
Need to be
to this board.
No, I'm saying to the city as far as distribution of that information. I can't tell you what's going to happen with that information.
Do you know if the money to do the physical improvements is coming out of the trust fund or coming out of the general fund?
I'm not aware of any money at this time coming out of the trust fund.
Okay.
What dates will it operate?
It's a week before Thanksgiving. I think to New Year's, and that's it, because after New Year's, everything kind of falls off when it comes to that event. So they'd rather pick up a week earlier.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All set, Reed?
All set.
Any board comments? Have we commented enough?
I'm drained.
Any report on the swinging sign on A1A? He was gone for 3 or 4 days, and then he was back again.
He's on vacation.
Carrie, any update? Reed, any update?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, there was a comment last time about what was said here about legal and what it said. And I think that what's happening out there is something that really should be enforced, and we need to look at how that's going to happen, and that has not taken place at this time. We're looking, the discussion is going in two directions. One is enforce something that is obviously commercial out on the public walkway. It's not a sign in the normal sense of a sign, because it's not on private property. So does the land development code apply or not? And we've had our debates over that. So we need to still settle up on what we're going to do about that particular issue, because it's just a little strange in that it's out in the public sidewalk, and you're having my goal is to see it gone, okay? To make sure that we don't have a propagation of more of this and tolerate it. That's where I'm coming from.
By the way, after Mr. Garcia was here that night, the board asked me to email him a list of all the street performers that I have on the boardwalk, which I did it that night. I listed in there the jugglers, the escape artists, the magicians, and I went on and on with their names, what they do, and I gave them web links to their performances. I also gave a permit to a face painter, but I did not give a permit to somebody who wanted to do tattoo art or whatever, because I thought that would compete with some of the local merchants right around the corner. He told me that I'm not allowed to do face painting because that's personal service. And then he came onto the boardwalk and cited a couple places there, which I don't do this, but it was henna tattoo. I don't understand that, because I didn't realize henna tattoo. I mean, to me, I would rather, if I had a daughter and she came back with a henna tattoo that was a temporary tattoo for 2 weeks, it wouldn't bother me. If she came out with a real tattoo, I'd flip out, so I don't know, I didn't know, but like I said, I don't own those businesses.
I'm sorry, did you just say that he said that's like the henna tattoo?
What's that?
Are you just saying that he said face painting is like a henna tattoo?
Yeah, he told me that I can't license a person to do face painting on the boardwalk. That was illegal. So I told him, fine. If you don't want me to license it.
No, wait. What about the henna tattoo?
He then went on to say that that's also personal service, and he cited Michael Hanna for having henna for doing henna tattoos.
Okay, so the henna tattoo place that I passed going down A1A to come here tonight, that's legal because it's in a storefront?
No.
The henna tattoo.
It says henna tattoo.
Okay.
I mean, what is going on here?
No, you're dealing with different zoning districts, so let's start there. Main Street and A1A, even right up to the corner of Ocean Ave and Main Street, you'll see henna tattoo right there in the window. Okay? Across from
this wasn't on Main Street. This was
Breakers Park.
Further.
Well, I understand on A1A.
Okay.
Those places can have personal services.
Okay.
As a permit right. In the boardwalk zoning district.
Okay.
You cannot have
personal
services, and that's where the line has been drawn in that area. Is that apparently. As they went out and enforced this, they saw that there were some people that had not necessarily the principal. The question is, there's some accessory activities in some of these shops too, but in some ways, that might be the strongest part of the business, and
like I said, this has nothing to do with my business because I'm
understand, and we'll keep you out of this.
All right,
okay.
But I didn't see a problem with it because there used to be like airbrush stores on the boardwalk, which at one point, is that a personal service that somebody's airbrushing? And then if they're allowed to airbrush on a shirt and that's allowed, they can't airbrush on a foot, let's say, or, you know, on your leg or whatever. You know, it's not a massage parlor is what I'm trying to say, you know?
Okay. Let us, we'll be revisiting with code enforcement on some of those issues we just talked about, okay?
Okay.
And as far as the other stuff with the face painting, I think we're okay.
Well, you brought up Garcia, you know?
Okay.
Oh, I didn't. I talked about the sign.
Yeah, that's Garcia. Yeah, you did. You said
Oh, I
code.
understand that, but I intentionally didn't mention his name.
Oh.
So if we could just take a time out until next month, and we'll hopefully wrap up some of this in terms of conclusions for you.
This week we had Public Works people from all over the country here. And I was amazed at the number of complaints I got regarding, from these people from all over, regarding the homeless, the prostitutes that have been up on A1A, especially from around the Seabreeze area, and drug activity going on. At first it was one person. I said, okay, it was a fluke. And in the last few days, I've had half dozen people, and it just doesn't put a good thing. And a few of them also complained about the lighting on the boardwalk side. That, you know what, it's creepy, it's scary. It was a beautiful night, but they just didn't feel comfortable walking around down there. The other thing, the last 2 days in a row, the power on the 200 block there has gone out. It went out Monday from like 5:30 till about 10 p.m. Yesterday it went out again from 10 to 12:15, 12:30
PM?
in the morning, in the daytime.
Okay.
About 10 a.m. to about 12:15, something like that. And FPL is giving us no answers whatsoever what the problem is there. So I don't know what we do. I mean, the street lights are going out. All the businesses are going out, and it's all of a sudden, just in the last few weeks. Now, it went out 4th of July weekend too for hours, but that was a main transformer thing, and it took out 2,000 and some odd customers.
Okay, let me check with our guys in terms of FPL and their response, and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you.
The guy with the sign, with the moving sign, just so we do know, tonight when I was coming down here, no, it was on, that sign was on a chair that was sitting not on the public right of way, but in the doorway, but outside the doorway, which that is illegal. That becomes a sandwich board sign. And I would say if we're having a problem between code and legal and redevelopment in terms of, I know legal's not having the problem. Legal gets it, I get it. But if the easiest way to do this might just be to make a text change in our land development code that says you can't do this stuff on the public right of way.
And we're looking at that.
Okay.
We are looking at that as one of
Okay.
those options.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, we have everything in there. It's very readable. It's clear. So I would hope we do that. The other thing I was going to say, the lights on A1A that were repainted, they look great. I've been meaning to say that for a while. I've been watching. They're really holding up. It was a job well done. It's terrific. It's nice to see that, the blue, it
Thanks
adds a lot.
to NASA.
And just a reminder, government services report for whenever we do get that workshop that you keep wanting to have. It would be helpful to have it. Thank you.
David?
I want to talk about tattoos. No comment.
Teresa? No. Suzanne?
Yes, I have a comment.
Come on.
This is going to be my mantra, so get ready because you're going to hear this every month. I would just want to say that I've been a small business owner since 1970. And I have great empathy, Dino, and for the other small business owners and large business owners on Main Street and A1A. I really do. I mean, I just have great empathy with you, and I understand the angst and that you have over what could happen here with the master plan. I'm a firm believer, and I said this a couple of different times at this meeting. Here's what I believe. I believe that we could change the customer base and the activities and the types of businesses on Main Street by having a strong customer base in the residential areas on the north and south of the E-zone. And I think, Tracy, you really opened up my eyes when we talked about Delray Beach, and I thought the reason Delray Beach was the way it was, you explained to me and I looked into it. You told me the reason that Delray Beach was not like Daytona Beach was because they made a conscious decision when they decided to revitalize their city and to have a strong residential population living in the homes around Atlantic Avenue, and they did not want to go and I love your hotels. I love this hotel. So I'm not saying anything against wonderful convention hotels. I think that is the most economical, feasible solution for Daytona Beach. However, what we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with customers that live in the surrounding neighborhoods of Main Street, and they are the people who will hang out in pool halls and bars. I mean, it's a simple fact. And all these people, Tim, that you're saying are complaining about what they see on the side streets, you know, absolutely. So I said once before, I think we need to come, New Smyrna Beach, great example. They don't have this criminal element and problems living around their Canal Street and their other beachside street. They have a walking village community, beautifully, renovated cottages, and a vibrant business on Canal Street. And so what I'm suggesting, the same thing I said before, let's creatively start thinking of ways to build a wonderful customer base for Main Street and for the shops on A1A. And then over the years, as the great hotels come in and we have a great tourist base here, in the meantime, we could create a customer base and a demographic profile in these surrounding residential, just in the zone that's to the north and south of the E-zone, not further south or further north than Oak Ridge or further south than ISB. And we would create a customer base that would bring in all types of people that would want to come and vacation here and live here, and all kinds of people that would want to buy homes like I did and to live in a walking community like New Smyrna Beach. And that would provide all the customers that businesses would need to have a customer base to support small businesses that are existing now. And that's what I think that we need to do, but we need to be real creative about it, how we're going to do it. But I think that saves and revitalizes not only Main Street, but it gives customers, local customers that live here, customers for your businesses and your businesses, Tim. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Quick sign, since we're talking so much on signs, I saw a new one today at the Main Street station. They have now a sign on like a wagon that they wheel out, and they put lettering on it as to what their daily special is and such, and then I think they're wheeling it back in. Have you seen that one yet, Teresa? Did it just come out recently, or has it been there a while?
It's been there a while.
Okay, I just saw it today for the first time, so it's just, something doesn't look lawful about that. I don't think we want everybody with signs on wagons going out and coming back in and all that. It's not quite the look we're trying to get. Following up on what Suzanne said there, and the infamous Delray and how they managed to do it down there. In the last month or so ago, I spent a good hour on the phone with the code enforcement officer for Delray Beach, who is, and the concept was we're going to create a safe zone, okay? And we're going to create an environment in which you're going to feel safe to want to live. But they basically have a zero tolerance approach with code enforcement there. They have a code enforcement that's responsive. Their goal is within 24 hours they're going to have a problem solved. They get a phone call in, they got someone out there that day, and they're going to get it handled. It's not going to go on for months and months and months and never get handled. They're not going to have a code enforcement officer who, does nothing with respect to noise issues and such. They have a noise ordinance. They're allowed to play to 2 a.m. there. Okay? Kind of surprised me, because you don't get all this loud noise there. But the difference is they are very strict as to how they allow it to be played. Okay? And everybody knows and has to follow by the rules, and they're all very successful along there. And if you get 100 feet from the establishment and you can still hear it, they're cited and they're shut down. And their police officers have meters and know how to use them and enforce it. And so therefore, what they're able to do is they're able to have the vibrant business activities, lots of restaurants, lots of bars, lots of this going on, even outside music playing, but they control it and they don't let some bad apples get away with things, okay? And that's what makes it work down there is, you know, I'm sorry, but I still haven't got that email from Mr. Garcia that I asked for months ago, and he said he was going to resend last month. You know, and it's not the situation where you have complaints that go on and nothing ever happens. They have a zero tolerance approach. They enforce it. They make it so everybody's following by the same rules. Everybody knows what the rules are. Everybody follows them. Everybody survives. They've got a vibrant community going. We can have that here too. So anyways, just following up on that. And I'll be in touch with you, Reed, about the issues about the special events and such.
Okay, good.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all.